Welcome to another Biddle on Saturday night. How's everybody doing?
Excellent.
Very good.
Very good.
And there's the cell phone of somebody's.
Oh, okay.
Happens every week. It's just a usual thing now, Matt.
I know, but it's great. It's one thing we can rely on every time.
All right, so this is the show that starts the new time slot, 9 o'clock. I appreciate everybody showing up at the time switch. It will probably work out better for some. It probably will work out worse for others. Who knows?
That's great for me.
It's great for me because I'm 10:30 is way too late for me.
Yeah.
Very
Well,
good for me too, because earlier I had to stay up until 4:30 in the morning, and so now it's very much easier. Wow.
Good.
all right. Can somebody in the chat verify that our sound is okay? Because last week's sound was terrible. I know. But anyway, new time slot, and of course, it happens that it was 25 minutes of, and because of last week's problems, I am going to do some sound tests before the show to make sure it sounds good and everything. And long story short, I go to set everything up onto the desktop and get everything lined up, and don't you know, I'm drinking a cup of chicken broth and I spill it all over my desk, all over my keyboard, everywhere.
Classic.
And so that keyboard's not working right now, so I had to get
I wonder why.
get
You made
another
it ill. Chicken soup is supposed to make things feel better.
I had to
Not
get another
ill.
one out and hook it up. So, but Matt, just so you know, the coffee still tastes good in my elementary mug. Just saying.
Shock. Surprise. color me elementarily surprised.
Right. All right. Well, before we get into that, we did a distro challenge, one of the most ridiculous ones I think we've done so far.
Do you know who's not here for it?
Yeah, the guy that suggested it.
It's always that way.
You pulled
He
a
pulled a Das
Ryan.
Geek. Yeah. So Popey suggested we do Chrome OS, and for some reason we agreed to. And I don't know. I'm going to guess there's probably only one person, maybe two, possibly three, that actually got that installed. Because it wasn't me.
I had better things to do with my life.
Me too.
All right, let's have a show of hands. How many people got it installed?
Well,
as I
to
suspected.
see it, but I
This
didn't.
last week.
Good call on the three.
That's a good guess, yeah.
All right, let's start with you, Dan.
All right, so I did get it installed. Basically, it's just an image file, and you just have to copy it over. And so I ran it. I ran it on the USB. I mean, I could have easily copied it over to my hard drive and ran it that way too. But it ran okay. I couldn't get the Linux apps to work, so that was really disappointing. And yeah, so I mean, I really
So you did some voodoo magic to get it installed because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, basically, it's an image file, so I just cloned it onto the USB stick, and I ran it from that.
All right.
It was just a browser.
So you're impressed.
No.
You're totally impressed, and you're switching to it as their new.
No, I would have a hard time running that as a daily driver for sure. I mean, it was fine for just the web browsing stuff, but I couldn't do anything else. And the other thing I couldn't do was the Android apps too. I mean, that would have been probably, I guess, acceptable, but yeah, I couldn't either get Linux apps or Android apps, and that's kind of the big draw, I would say, with Chrome OS. Now, I ran the Arnold the Bat version. I don't know. I mean, Climby, you can probably speak to the other versions. I only ran the one. So that's all I got.
Climby?
Yeah. So I first tried the Arnold the Bats versions. I installed it on my AMD laptop and this tablet, which it actually worked. The 32-bit EFI tablet actually worked on it. The only thing I had an issue with when I tried Arnold the Bats, I couldn't whenever I try to run a YouTube video, I would get like a buffering thing, and it would be like, if you're still seeing this, restart the machine. So I couldn't actually play YouTube videos no matter what I tried on the Arnold the Bat builds. But I did actually get the Linux support working on the Arnold the Bat builds. And the funny thing is, I was actually able to install Firefox through the through the little Linux VM thing, and YouTube videos did play back in Firefox.
That's great.
Chrome OS.
That's fantastic.
But there was no audio because there's currently no audio support in the Linux environment thing. So, from then I tried the Neverware Ready OS, or Neverware Cloud Ready. I tried that one. And that one it's based on an older version of Chromium. It's not the latest 70, what Arnold the Bat was on. It's 68, which the Linux support's hidden. You have to enable a flag in the Chrome settings to enable the Linux support on that. But I couldn't get it running on either machine. It just would not start the containerized environment. Every time it would just fail to start the Termina VM or whatever it's called. But I did actually get YouTube videos working on that one. And the cool thing about Neverware Ready OS is that if you go into the settings on the main page, they actually have links there to automate the installation of Flash and proprietary media codecs. They have that all there, so all you have to do is click on it. And Neverware also has a GUI installer, which Arnold the Bats did not. So, and just recently, a few days ago, they actually pushed version 69 through the dev channel on Neverware Ready OS, so all you do is change the channel to dev, you update, and then you're on 69. But I still couldn't get the Linux apps working on that either. And I also tried Flatpaks because Neverware Ready OS actually has built-in Flatpak support through the actual Chromium OS, not through the containerized Linux VM. So it kind of has direct access to the root of Chromium OS. And that I couldn't, there's only one Flatpak actually got to work, which was Telegram. But even that one was kind of glitchy. And so I just ended up using the Telegram web app, and that worked fine. But yeah, so the Android app's not working is a known thing with Chromium OS. That's something they're trying to work on. That's not working in any instance of Chromium OS right now. But yeah, the Linux support I was able to get working with Arnold the Bats, but I couldn't get YouTube videos to play for whatever reason. So yeah, you can't really do a whole lot with it.
So it was great. So
Yeah,
the whole
it's
challenge is great.
I didn't have any problem with YouTube, but I couldn't get Linux to work. So there you go.
I'll also say too, the other challenge we had, which was Chakra. I spent some time with that as well on my main computer because the Chromium OS thing, it's kind of an image that DDs itself to a hard drive because it has a weird partition structure of like 26 different partitions. So there's really no way to dual boot with Chromium OS. So you just pick a drive and it just flashes itself to it and overrides whatever's on it, which is why I didn't do it on my main machine because I didn't have a whole hard drive to spare on it. But as far as Chakra goes, this was kind of a bad week to do Chakra as well because they're now in a transition period where it seemed like it was inactive for a bit, but now they're finally trying to push out the new image for 2018. And like before, the image that's currently out, it's a year old. It's from October 2017. And even after updating it, you were on Plasma 5.11.4. The kernel was 4.13.11. Everything was super old. You couldn't even enable the AUR because Pac-Man was too old, and you couldn't update Pac-Man because Chakra uses its own repositories. They don't use the Arch repositories. So they had this semi-rolling model where they kind of control the packages, but the whole goal of it, I think, initially was to have an updated KDE base on a somewhat stable Arch base, which they control the packages for. So it's not regular mainline Arch repositories. Right. But they're just now working on putting out a beta for 2018 of October. And they actually did update the repositories to now they're on the Linux kernel 4.18.12. And they're on Plasma 5.13.5, but they have Plasma 5.14.1 in the testing repositories. So they're now getting up to date. But when I tried updating after I found out that the mirror list needed to be updated and all the other stuff, and I got that working, the install broke when I tried to boot, and I didn't really want to fix it at that point. So I'm probably just going to wait for them to release the 2018 beta. And then once all that's in an image, it's just ready to go, then I wouldn't mind testing it out.
Ain't Linux great?
Absolutely.
All right. Did anybody else try out Chrome OS?
Yes, I did.
All right. What do you got, Michael?
Yeah, well, I tried it. It was a little weird, actually. I have an old, or for at least for me, old laptop, an i3 with 4 gigs of RAM and 120 gig SSD. So first, I had trouble getting the USB stick to boot. I tried a couple of versions of it and flashed the USB stick or copied over the files. Everything went. I tried several times, and it seemed to work okay. But when I was about to boot from the stick, it wouldn't boot. Just simply not boot. Until I tried the version on the VAT, and specifically the one enhanced special build R69-10895.b. That one booted fine. And so I installed it, and actually it ran perfectly fine. I have it sitting here on my desk. I have streaming YouTube videos, listening to music a couple of days. It's been working fine for the basic stuff. Chromium, the browser is working fine. I could enable the Linux apps, but as Climby said, there are a lot of things not working. And I could, and this was very weird, I could enable the Android apps, but I couldn't use the apps. It would enable and it would download the apps, but they wouldn't start. So I don't know. But other than that, the OS itself worked. There was no problem. But yeah, it's a very weird OS. I don't know what they are thinking of over there at Google. It's very weird and yeah, maybe for kids or something like that, I could see a use case, but I don't know. It seems very weird to me, but it worked. So yeah.
All right, Colin.
Didn't Steve install it? Did you say you installed it, Steve?
Yeah, I had installed it. Not this last week, but I've installed the Cloud Ready version from Neverwhere before, because my kids in their school have Chromebooks. So I thought it'd be nice if they could have a Chrome machine at home. Right. But to be honest with you, and I did get it to dual boot. I actually had it dual booting between Kubuntu and Cloud Ready. But I think when I set up the dual boot, you have to install Cloud Ready first. And then it has all those strange partitions. And then you have to be very careful what partition you shrink so that you can put a new partition in and install a Linux distro. And I got it installed, but then I think that also ended up breaking the updating, because that strange partitioning that they do is so that the way the Chrome OS updates is it always has two partitions with the OS in it. It always installs a new OS into one of the partitions, and then it'll just when it tells you to reboot, it basically reboots into the new one that was just installed into the one partition, and then it can install the new version of Chrome OS into the partition you just left. So it's always kind of switching between two main partitions. That's how it does its updating on Chromebooks, and also that's how Neverwhere does it as well. But when you try to dual boot, I think that kind of breaks that, because then everything gets run by Grub instead of their bootloader that they install originally. So I had it running for a while, but my question to all of you who have run it, and if you've ever tried it, is why would Linux geeks like us actually use it? I don't. I had it on the laptop for a while. We never booted into it because you can do whatever you want in a Linux distro with Chrome installed and get most of the benefit from Chrome OS.
Don't ask me why we tried it.
Well, because you could. I mean, that's all you need to say. Because it's there. Why not?
Because why not?
I mean, I actually tried About 4 or 5 months ago, I actually tried to install it on a Dell Venue 8-inch tablet that was a 32-bit. I could not get it to work. I couldn't, and that was a 32-bit with EFI, and I could not get it to install.
Well, when you guys say install, I mean you're just
it wouldn't boot.
You're booting off the USB, correct?
No, I actually had it installed on the hard drive.
On the hard drive.
But you could just do a DD and copy it to the hard drive, and basically it's the same thing.
Etcher. I did it with Etcher. Etcher did that no problem.
Right.
So I got it to the USB. It was running on the USB, and then Rocco, I went to the site. I RTFM'd Rocco, and a fat lot of good that did me.
Yeah, where's
I could not get it installed.
Ryan's not.
So I tried. I read. And I just said, I'm moving. I did a Z. I just said, next.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, there was a lot of instructions on there, what you should do in the terminal and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know, I did get it on a USB, and I did try it on this, boot it up on this laptop. And the graphics were all distorted and everything, so you really couldn't see anything. But no, I didn't try to go and it was too much. I had too busy of a week to do anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think Michael had a very special experience with Chrome OS back in June.
You mean Michael from Tux Digital?
Hi there.
Correct.
That's convenient to be on this conversation. Let's totally talk about that.
Yeah. How was Chrome OS, Michael?
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yep.
It's nothing special, I must say.
No, there's nothing. I mean, there's a ton of things I don't want. The only reason it was cool when I did use it was because it was like the first week that the Christini thing was out, and I borrowed someone's Chromebook to do a presentation that totally like was a disaster. But you know, that kind of thing. There's always a fun time when you're using Chrome OS, I guess.
Yeah.
That's really my only experience. So that's really not a good, case point.
That's a perfect case point.
And how do you define fun?
Random torture and demonstrating stuff. Here's the best part about it. When the Chromebook was okay until a certain thing I wanted to demonstrate. I got to the point where it's like, to do this function, you need to hit Control and then the home key. There's no home key on this keyboard. So never mind.
Like, what's wrong with there's.
But Michael took that whole thing in stride. That was awesome to see somebody have so many problems with his presentation and yet just continue on, and it ended up being really good anyway.
Yeah.
So
there was at the end of the talk, I asked like how many people actually found something useful in, from whatever this was. And there was like 80% said they learned something. I was like, oh wow, that's impressive that you could actually pay attention to what I'm saying with all the other things that are breaking and the microphone not working halfway through. So
it's like if everything could go wrong, it all did.
Well,
things that I didn't even imagine could go wrong went wrong.
I did try out Chakra, actually, Rocco.
Yeah, what'd you think?
Well, it was like Climby said that they're probably transitioning, but I thought it was a bit odd, and I had a few comments with Silent on one of my videos for that during the week. But they've actually forked the Arch repo, so I don't know why, for starters, you would do that, because I would have thought that the Arch repos are quite secure and safe.
Well, they're not. It's not about that. They're not a fork of Arch.
Well, it says that on their on the web page. It's independent. Let's put it that way.
They're not a fork of Arch in the sense that they're not a derivative. They don't use the Arch repos. They forked pieces of the Arch stack.
They packaged,
and then they built on their own. Now, then it's completely separate now.
Mm-hmm. It's like Solus. You got to package the Arch packages into their Chakra community.
Yeah, repo. Similar. They have their own package build system thing.
Instead of the AUR, they have the CCR, which is the Chakra Community Repository.
Yeah,
that's right. So what I'm saying is, I don't know why they wouldn't use the Arch repos and maybe just fork the and package up the AUR, which is a little bit
Because they don't want to be an Arch derivative.
right. Okay.
They like the way the Arch works, but they don't want to be another Arch derivative.
But they're just restricting themselves package-wise when it comes to users, though, aren't they? At the moment.
That's true. When they first started, they were like KDE Plasma only, I think.
Right.
And,
Same as Chaos, right?
Yeah, I think Chaos is more. It's KOS.
It's Chaos, dude. It's Chaos.
I want it to be Chaos, but I asked him, and
I want it to be Chaos. So on this show, it's Chaos.
We're in agreement. So it's in this show, it's Chaos.
Chaos. Fairly chaotic, so.
Yeah. So that's the same thing with them too. Yeah.
We do what we want.
They do a like their own like repository community thing too. But Chakra has like they've got a lot more work than I think Chaos does, and as far as like the community package stuff goes. But I think it's just because they don't want to be an Arch derivative. They want to be they like Pac-Man and they like some of the stuff that Arch does, but they don't want to be like dependent on Arch.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. But I'm interested to try out the newer one. Then I'll keep an eye out for that. So.
Well, I didn't get a chance to try out Chakra, because other things came out this week.
Yeah.
So I had to install.
Oh, right. There was that like Uberbun or something.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Well, before we go any further, Adam, you got some experience in Chrome OS, right?
Yeah, actually, I have a Chromebook, Samsung like Chromebook Plus, I think it is. But yeah, I really like it. I used to use my iPad a lot for like portable computing, just simple computing. But I've actually been using the Chromebook a lot more because I get the Android apps, I get the Linux apps, I get Chrome apps, all that stuff on this really lightweight, really easy to use machine. And I mean, yeah, I could lug around my full Linux laptop that gets less battery life and all that, but this is not that portable, right? Because I have a big ass laptop. Big laptop. And yeah.
You worry about me.
Wait, I watched. Go ahead, man.
I mean, it's just so it's so portable. It's so good. Like every time I just open it, it's there. When I have to boot it up from cold boot, it takes like half a second. It's really nice.
It does boot fast.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other comments on Chrome OS? Anybody want to get in?
Don't use it.
Well, I mean, it has its purposes. It has its issues.
Oh, okay. If your school is forcing you to use it, then you have to use it. Then use it. Otherwise, don't use it.
I disagree with that.
That's a great OS, but if you don't actually have the Chromebook, then I don't see a point in installing it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use like the third-party Chrome OS versions, no, but like the official Chromebook, yeah, it's great. I mean, better than carrying around a tablet.
Is, a little Gentoo, it's a little Slackware, it's a little Arch, it's a little everything.
Yeah. How about the amount of money you spend on that laptop, which is about $250 or so, you spend it on a Windows type laptop from Toshiba or something, replace Windows with Linux and have a real system.
And get terrible battery life.
But you also want
that too.
The ZenBook gets pretty good battery life. I mean, only 10 to 11 hours. I mean, I don't know if that's good.
The ZenBook's like $400, and you can get it. You have really good battery life for that. Like the Chromebooks, like when the Chromebooks came out, they were like a great deal. They were a good price. And they had way better battery life, mostly because they were ARM. As soon as they brought the x86, the battery life was like just dropped drastically.
Yeah, the one I have is ARM. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get any ARM laptop, and it's going to be cheaper probably. So I don't think it's that the Chromebooks are no longer, they're more of a novelty now. I don't think they have any kind of real power in the sense of reasons to get it. They have power in the sense of forcing schools to purchase them.
Yeah, because they're cheap. They're cheap in the way the kids treat them, because I deal with that every day. They're $200, $250, and the kid breaks it. Well, it's not like a $700 or $800 laptop.
Yeah, but you can get a $250 laptop that is equally or more powerful than the Chromebooks now.
Oh yeah,
I think the enterprise management is pretty good on them, and that's probably why a lot of schools.
That's another reason.
That's a big reason.
Yes,
that's it.
Because we can keep the kids from getting on Facebook, Instagram, and so on and so forth, which we can't do with laptops. Laptops, they figure out ways no matter how they block it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's why. That's why we use them. And then everything has to go through like Google Docs, and we can keep track of what they're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why schools are using them.
Absolutely.
And that's
I agree.
Prophetic, does he ever? I'm just saying, throwing it out there.
I do not hold on to things.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else want to say anything about Chakra before we move on?
Use it.
It was dead.
That's not, no, don't, no.
Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
There was actually one
thought
that
it was like defunct.
No, there was one that was like similar, but it was called Simplest that died.
Oh, okay.
I think they were also, no, they were Debian based. I don't know. There was one that was an Arch based that was like Chakra that was KDE specific, and it went away, but I don't remember what it was called.
All right.
Chartreuse?
It could be. It could be. And if there isn't one named that, there should be.
I think there used to be.
All right. This week came out the best operating system ever made.
MX?
Wait, no, I didn't say that.
KDE Neon 514, was that?
MX17?
No, by the time I had a chance to have any time whatsoever to install Chakra, Elementary had dropped this week, so there was just no way that I was not going to install it. So I ended up blowing away my KDE Neon partition.
Heresy!
No. Now, the reason I did this was
that's
because...
like swearing in church. That's not okay.
No, the reason I did this was on my main drive I had MX and I had KDE Neon. Well, I have enough space on there to have 3 partitions, but I had only made it into 2. So I had to choose one that I was going to basically blow up and then repartition into 2 more partitions. And I chose Neon because MX was just working way better than Neon at that moment. So I blew up the Neon edition, split it into and split it into and installed Elementary and Neon again. And that's what I've been running since it came out. And it is absolutely awesome, just like I thought it would be. Anybody else have an opinion? Where's Chicken when you need him?
Working. Chicken's working.
Longest release notes ever.
That is
I'm not gonna say it's the longest release notes ever. It only took me more than an hour to read it.
The best
you know
part
what's
about
even
that.
funnier is I had a conversation with one of the. Sorry, I'm being corrected by my wife at the moment because I'm being too loud. I do apologize.
Hey, Sistrum, can you quiet down a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just excited because it was pretty nice.
Parent life.
Okay, and my daughter used her manners. I'm sorry. Anyway, I had a conversation with the reporter from Forbes, I think is what he reports for. Had a conversation with him, and we were kind of having a joke back and forth about the fact that he did a review, and it was really nice because his review was basically all of the notes condensed into like 5-minute read, and it was really nice. So if you actually want to take the time to do a 5-minute read, his actual article and notes are really easy to breeze through. But if you want to spend 35 minutes or longer reading what he was posted by one of the developers themselves.
Cassidy, I think.
Cassidy, I think, did it. Yeah.
No, he even commented too, but that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, it was pretty nice. I don't know. I'm going to say that having the thought process in, having all of those notes and having that information when I actually installed and loaded it and got it set up, because it is one of the ones I use besides Pop! OS as a workhorse, distribution. Having all of those notes, it made it a lot easier for me to move things around. I mean, it looks on the surface identical to the previous one on the surface, but underneath there are so many different changes. There's things you need to tweak, things you got to adjust underneath the system if you're putting it on a system that's going from one transition to another. Like if you're coming from the other one. into the new one, and it really is. It did feel, once I got it installed, it really felt like a competition of like, wow, this is what we could have as Linux as the mainstream. If we're going to have a discussion about people are like Mac OS versus Windows versus Linux, and we're having that discussion, you can literally just say, here's Elementary OS. Here's a representation of everything you can think of that is the perfect curation of our effort and work and how much effort is put into it. That's exactly this right here. And but I live in Pop OS most of the time, but I have to say that about Elementary.
I'd have to disagree because it doesn't use plasma.
I'll agree with
Shocking.
No.
Shocking.
Go figure.
That'd be your answer for any one of them.
No, they have put so many refinements into this release that you really do have to read the release notes to see everything that they have put into it. It is amazing. And, you know, yeah, it's taken a while from between releases. And a lot of it you may have already heard because, you know, people tried the beta and you heard of these features already. But you really should go and, even if you speed read and glance over the release notes, just the amount of features and work that went into it is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they put a lot of work into it. It looks good. I mean, all the nice polish that they added and stuff like that. And I do like some of the, like, they did some icon changes and they made the icon color scheme more concise and consolidated, and I like that. Like, overall, I think Elementary is a really good distro.
The icons are really crisp and clear, I must say.
They did a lot of work on the icon set.
Yeah.
Improving the colors and everything. But Dustin, you had brought up to me an issue with Elementary.
Well, I mean, I installed it. It only lasted 10 minutes for me because the reality is the moment I installed any app outside of their store, it just sort of broke the illusion for me. Like, and it just killed it for me. I don't know why. Like, it's super solid. It's super speedy. Like, nothing wrong with it. But the moment the illusion was broke, I may as well just run whatever else, because that to me is why I would go there.
It is actually kind of unfortunate when you install another application that they don't have a full icon set. Like, they put so much effort into their system and they have this really nice icon set, but there's so many applications that they don't support the icons for. So it just immediately, and especially if they go into the dock, it just looks really awkward. And if they were to do something like that, it would be way better.
Well, considering Sam Hewitt like contributes with them, you'd think they'd push a little harder there, maybe.
I think he only contributes like occasionally type thing. I don't think he's like works on their icons and stuff.
Well, I have yet to find an app that doesn't have an icon for it. Now, I'm sure there are, but for the ones that I have installed, there has been an icon for everyone.
How do they work? Okay, let me ask you this. When you're installing them, are you going like stock debs or are you going snaps? Because I was listening to one of the other podcasts and Daniel was saying that sort of their recommended supported way is through sideloading like a snap. Like, that's going to be their whole strategy for third-party apps. And then
I haven't loaded a snap on here yet.
Yeah,
I would think snaps would be worse for icons.
I would think.
Well, that's why I was asking, right?
Yeah,
I think in the sense that they want to use it. They want to use it just because it's they can support more applications that way and not have to worry about putting in the repo and stuff.
What was that, Barb?
Not every single application has been made into a snap.
Right.
And that's a big problem there, because there are a lot of applications out there and they're not snaps.
I don't think Elementary's ever looked at the availability as an issue. Like, for example, if you look at the repo, if you're using an application that is not from their pack of the things that they make or the ones that they kind of like bless, sort of, they're not going to get an update like at all for the full 2 years. There's just no update whatsoever. So like, either you get a PPA or a snap, and I think they're like leaning towards snaps because of the confinement type thing. And that's why they feel more safe rather than suggesting PPAs. But overall, I think that they don't really have they're not interested in providing like this full icon support thing. I talked to Daniel about it, and he did say that they would like for the developers to make an icon that matches it. That's why they provide like the design guides and stuff, because it's like the amount of time that they have to put in to make all these icons would be like kind of excessive. So I suppose.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't see how you could support every application out there. I mean, that just is not going to happen. And they shouldn't have to, really. I don't know what the answer for that is, but they shouldn't have to support everything.
They don't, but that's just the illusion thing. Like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if you're going to elementary, it's because you want that cohesive feel, look, the way it just literally feels. And that's exactly my point. If you can't support those icons, which I wouldn't even remotely expect them to, it breaks the illusion. Therefore, I've lost my reason to run it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that was brought up towards that market, are they? They're going more towards people who just want their browser,
essentials,
their email, the basics, and
but they wouldn't put as much effort in the App Center then.
Huh?
Yeah.
I
think they're
putting so much effort in the App
look
Center.
and feel. Like, they are so. I'm not going to use the word strict, but they're very opinionated in their design, which is good. Like, that's what
that's quality
like
control.
about them, right? But it just. I think that's why a lot of people go there. Other than, I mean, it does just work. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
You don't have to worry about like changing a ton of stuff because it's like the defaults are really nice.
Well, they even say that they abstract a lot of the customization. Like, they try to give you same defaults, and they sort of higher level even their settings that are available to a user.
Well, I mean, okay, so for me on that same aspect, I mean, it really is trying to give that specific idea that it is refined to a point to where it can actually be on the same level as what people would consider with like Windows or Mac, where it's unification, it's designed by a specific layout, and then it is a specific way. And so even when you deal with that in those other realms, there are situations where if an icon set is not the same within the main system, that you're going to have those issues. And it's just going to require time and reference to bring that up to, because that's not them. That's third-party applications you're going to be running in their distribution. And they're even going beyond the idea of a distribution. They're going to an actual identity. So for elementary OS, it is elementary. It's not just Linux. It's elementary OS. It's different. It's separate. It's its own thing. And it just is using, if you want to take it this way, it's really going that Chrome OS path, where it still runs a Linux kernel. It's Linux based, but it's its own thing. It's its own direction. And so if you want to get the full functionality and the full feature set, you've got to get the applications through their specific realm, their specific set. And so you have to develop things. And my wife is now laughing at me.
Well, let me ask you something, Rocco.
Yep.
You're running Zoom at the moment. Does Zoom come up as an app indicator on top right?
No.
No.
And that's one of the downfalls.
And I got an opinion on this, and I got no problem with the way Elementary are doing things there. They got the paid model. They're supporting the developers. They got the website where they give the illusion that you have to pay something for the system as well to download it. That's all well and good. I've got no problem with that. But, if you're paying for something, I would expect it to be at least on par with most other free distros, or if not, just a little bit better. Now,
I think it is, though, in my opinion.
Well, it doesn't have app indicators and those little things. It doesn't have, you cannot just, for an average user who goes on there and somebody says, just go and download a .deb file, you'll be fine. Can't do that. They wouldn't know because you can't install a .deb file. Those little things that are missing from a standard Linux user point of view is something that I would expect to be on par or just that little bit better. That's the way I look at it. You've got to get past the fact that it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. We need functionality as well, I would have thought.
But it is beautiful and gorgeous.
But it goes in, but the philosophy and the aspect is everything comes out of their store. It's not. It's meant to be a walled garden. To be honest with you, it's a walled garden style distribution.
And I don't think most Linux users nowadays. I mean, we are the exceptions. Most Linux users just go into the store like they do in Windows. It's the tinkerers like us who are a minority that are going to have issues with elementary, not the average user.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
What a lot of people don't understand is we're considered dinosaurs now as far as it comes to computing.
Yep.
Most people nowadays use these weird things like cell phones and tablets and stuff.
Right.
Where do
What's
they
a
get
computer?
Exactly. Where do they get their applications from? They get them from a store.
Yeah.
Or software center.
I would also
that is
point
how
out-
they know computing.
Well,
they don't know to
because
go
of
grab a
mobile.
DEB file.
That's not a normal thing. Like
file.
Windows has had a store for like what, a year maybe max,
and nobody likes it.
and everybody hates the system and things. So like,
Now, I will say elementary is, you can obviously tell, is made for people who are coming from Mac OS.
Yeah.
It has that whole design concept and the way it's built. So people coming from Mac OS to elementary OS, they're going to feel right at home. So installing things that are from the App Store for them isn't going to be a big issue. They're not going to think, oh, hey, I can add a PPA.
yeah, that's not how you install stuff from Mac either.
No.
They don't have an app store.
What I was going to say about elementary, though, is you can't compare it to Linux. I think you actually have to compare it more to like Mac or Windows, because it's a self-contained ecosystem is sort of what they're going for. The fact that you can't have an app indicator, that's irrelevant. That's not what they're trying to do. That's not what the market is. They're not trying to go for the tinkerers. They're trying to go for the experience. And I think with that, and the fact that someone brought up that it's a walled garden, I think it's actually closer to compare it to an OS 10 or something like that. Like, even if the underpinnings are Linux, that's besides the point. It's the overall experience. I don't think it's fair to compare it across to another distro at all.
And the other thing is that the majority of people are not, as we're calling ourselves tinkerers. They're not like us. They just want those basic apps, and they'll probably rarely ever want anything else than what's in the App Store.
It's the same instance like the Chromebook.
Yeah, it's like the Chromebook. It's like I have friends who use who have MacBook Pros, and the only stuff that they ever get is like from the App Store, and that's it. They don't know that there's anything else.
So,
I think Dustin made a really neat point about the it being a unique operating system all to itself. But that interview with Daniel on the Ubuntu podcast, I thought he had an awfully interesting comment, because it's still one of the things they promote is we are open source, and we're an open source community, and all of our apps are open source.
I heard that one. That was good.
In his 5-year plan, he's hopeful that somebody would write a spreadsheet app in Vala, which why would we want to put all of that work into writing such a complex application when we already have something like LibreOffice that's ready-made?
LibreOffice is ugly as sin. No, I'm just kidding.
because he wants it to fit the elementary experience. That's why. Like,
yeah, if
that's
you can change the default icons and they would be fine.
But I think but they're more about than just the icons. It's the design behind it and how it works.
You're not going to be able to make. There's no one who's going to look at an office suite and go, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen."
I want to live in this all day long.
It's an office suite.
But there should be a balance.
Just make them
when you look at office suites and you look at, let's say, Microsoft Office on Windows, which I have to use at work, versus Microsoft Office on my Mac, which I get to use at home. Yes, for those of you who don't know, I also have a Mac. They don't even look that much the same. They don't even have menu options in the same places. And
they aren't.
They aren't. And nobody complains. Nobody says, oh, I'm not going to use it. You use it because you need the file compatibility is why you're using it. I mean, that's why I have a copy of it, because I need the file compatibility.
But to be fair, though, like the way the app looks and feels plays. I think a Linux tinkerers like us, we underplay the value of design for us, and then the designers overplay the value of design. It's like it's somewhere in the middle, because I know for like that these third party like Office on Linux, they go through the roof because they kind of look nicer than LibreOffice. Like those, I think Dark one you use. I forgot the name one you use. Yeah, WPS. And there's other versions too. And then people just
by the KDE team.
Softmaker Office.
So people use those things because they actually do look better. because we are tribalistic and we do think shiny things are better. So I think
I don't think
they
I don't
are
think
better.
that's really is like a reason people would use to like whatever that people just use it because they need it to do their job. And I think Office.
I'm talking about the average. I'm talking about the average person now, like not like a developer or a hardcore desktop
No, I think
user.
the mass majority of people will just use whatever and don't care what it looks like.
Yep.
And because they just need to use what they need to use, and then that's
And
it.
they'll use
whatever.
stuff that looks
Whatever's
familiar
there.
to them.
If you, I guarantee you, if you put LibreOffice in front of somebody and then ask them to use another comparison, they'll probably choose something that looks nicer.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't matter because their only reference point is what looks better because they don't really care. If you ask them,
no, users do get very, very mad when you change stuff on them. Just think of, like if you've ever felt in an environment where you've had to support Windows machines, where users had to go from Office 2003 to a version of Office or any upgraded version of Office, they wig out because the UI is different. They yell about something called a ribbon. I never had to deal with it because I used something else. But I'm just saying, users got really wigged out by the changes.
Right, but that's when they're forced to have.
You both have valid points from different directions, and it makes absolute sense on both sides of it. Users like pretty things, and users also like things to work. And
they like things
the
to be
problem is
familiar.
LibreOffice has a bad habit of both of those not being correct. Okay? So that's the issue.
But
It's
Marv
no
had a
problem.
good point. It's partially users want the familiarity
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Yeah.
They want to know that, like
want
you
the
said,
same.
System, they want their menus where their menus were.
Mhm.
They don't want to learn a new thing.
No, they don't,
So-
because they want to be able to do things that they need to get done. All the years that I was doing programming and tech support for 23 years, that's what they want. They don't want have all these extra new features, but they want to be able to get their work done, do it without always having to call, where's this, and they do get upset when you change the way the software works or the way it looks.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, we all do at some point. You know, even
all
like
get
us tinkerers get upset when things aren't where they're supposed to be. Like, for example, app indicators. Where are my app indicators? Now I'm upset. Now I need to use another operating system because I don't have
There's a
app
difference
indicators.
between the app indicators being in a different place and not
And not
existing
there.
at all.
You can
Michael
get to
has a good
them,
point.
but you can get to them. They're through the plank, or not the plank, the whatever Pantheon doc. They're there. You just have to go about it differently. It's like Zoom. Zoom doesn't have an app indicator up there, but it shows in the panel. In the window.
That's just the task manager type approach.
But you can use the same operations as you would.
They're
through
trying to
this
meld. They're trying to
as
meld it
you do
together.
in the app
okay,
indicator.
they're basically doing a Mac style.
Yeah, so
it's like Steam. So what I had to do is I had the apps that I run that don't have a app indicator, I have to pin to the wing panel, so I can get to them when I need to get to them.
The difference with the Mac is they do have app indicators.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, but they also have the dock function where you.
They do. They have the dock.
And they have the dock, and anything you're using actually shows up in the dock.
Yep.
And
But they made very clear that Elementary is not a Mac clone.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I did
not.
that in there. And
I think we have to accept the fact that Elementary, even though it may have design influences, to be generous, from the Mac world, they are trying to have a new paradigm. Even though they have, they're building on top of Ubuntu and on GTK, and Mac being like again a design element. Because when I opened up Tunes, I was like, wow! I thought I was opening up iTunes for a second, for their music app for a second. But Elementary is doing something new, and I think I feel personally that I respect the newness.
Oh, yeah.
For them to do that, because like you said, like people like to they don't like change. Users don't like change. They can't. They're trying to get a chance for users to get used to their stuff, so that they can piss them off later when they change it. So like they're trying to get used to our Elementary ethos first, and they're so young, they're still so new compared to the long scheme thing. So
It's kind
it
of
should be
interesting. They might be kind of doing like the 2-year releases because that makes it easier for them to like gradually get people used to the changes, and they're like, okay, now there's 2 years apart. This is a very different thing now. So it's like, I think that's a good point. And I do think that they are separate, and I do like what they're doing, especially with the App Center idea, with the developers getting access to, the new system they're doing for paying developers and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of interesting things they're doing.
That's what helps me.
Like, there's just so many things that it's hard to, you know, like for me, I can't use it mainly because it's not plasma, but really it's because I can't change anything. Without,
they have a very unified vision. It's not patchwork like a lot of the other distros are. It's very unified, and they want to keep it as one thing, not modular like a lot of others.
Sure. I mean, I'm saying I can't use it because of that. I'm not saying that it's not good. It's just not for me.
Do you guys see a future where Elementary becomes the new Linux Mint?
Not really.
No.
No. I was gonna say, I think Elementary is more of a soulless type of deal where you view it as an operating system in and of itself with a Linux base, but you don't actually view it as a Linux
but I
system.
think it could turn into
I think so too.
I think it has the potential to do that because
Me
the
too.
reason that Solus doesn't have the potential to do it is because of
the packaging.
Yeah,
Oh,
the complete differences between everything in Solus from and the rolling release and possibilities of breakage and all this other stuff.
And a missing founder.
and a missing
too
founder.
Too soon.
The thing is, though, if you look at Mint, though, it is kind of a better introduction to Linux because even though it is mostly unified, you still have a choice of desktop environments. You can choose where in Elementary you get what they give you.
Yeah, but I think, Dave, that if you're talking about the idea of his question was becoming the Linux Mint, and I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Prophetic, but when I think of Linux Mint, I think of the distro for the new user.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
so the new user is not going to care what desktop environment they get.
It might be overwhelming for them.
But at the same time, Linux Mint is like the new user's introduction to Linux.
Right.
So it follows a lot of Linux things, whereas Elementary wants to do elementary things.
The way I typically look at it is if you're coming from Mac, you need to do Elementary, and then you can go to Linux Mint. That way you can be more slowly introduced because the way Linux works is just so different from the way Mac works. But if you're coming from Windows, you can go to Linux Mint because the way that desktop is set up is closer.
Well, I mean, desktop paradigms aside, if you, as we were talking earlier about people not wanting to change, if they're willing to go to Elementary and then they learn Elementary and then they move to something like Linux Mint, they're basically starting all over again.
And if you're willing to at least learn the code, you can easily jump from say Elementary to even Ubuntu or some other distro, and you can install the Pantheon desktop.
Well, that defeats the point.
But that's where it all falls apart because Elementary wants to do everything in its own way, in its own paradigm and everything, its own ecosystem.
Yeah,
that it doesn't translate well to mainline Linux stuff like Ubuntu or Linux Mint.
Well, see, here's a funny thing. Elementary is doing what Ubuntu used to get slagged on for doing.
What?
More or less, if you really look at it.
I mean, you mean changing where the close button stuff is?
Just doing different stuff altogether.
Maximize
like
not invented here.
Features away.
Yeah, the whole not invented here mentality, etc. So they say.
Yeah.
But everybody changes stuff, and people get mad at the most ridiculous things,
but
it doesn't matter.
Ubuntu supports like enterprise and also like personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Elementary has made no qualms. Like they're not trying to be this like big corporate type thing. They're making it for someone who's, I mean, they make it for everybody, they say, but let's be honest, they are making it for newer users, beginners, or low hassle users.
I think the only reason that there's two reasons actually that there's no way that Elementary will usurp Linux Mint unless Linux Mint does something terrible. And
some people will say they do, but yeah, go ahead.
I do think that they have bad setup, but I'm talking about in the sense of like so obvious that if you don't even know about the technical stuff that you wouldn't use it. Mm-hmm. And the two things is, one, more people use Windows than Mac, so more people are more likely to look for a Windows paradigm. So
start left. Yeah.
Two, it is the most popular distribution with the word Linux in it. And most people look for a distribution that has Linux in it because because the vast majority of people who talk about Linux, they just use the word Linux. So they just search for Linux and they're like, oh, this is the minty version of Linux. I'll use that.
That's true. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because even in YouTube land, people, when they first started, would put Linux somewhere in their name so that it would come up in the search results.
Yep. Who would do that, Big Daddy?
I don't
Linux?
know. I don't know.
I don't know.
My new name is Prophetic Linux.
No, I'm saying they would put it as first.
Yeah.
Like Linux would be their the first word in their name, so that
Linux at Tux Digital.
I'm curious to hear from Wendy though, because Wendy, you do photo editing. You used to rock a MacBook. You still do rock.
I've never used Mac.
No, but you okay? Never mind. I'm confusing with someone else then. Because all the photo editing you do, I assume that
I do photo editing.
You started with the Mac and then you moved to Linux. I thought.
No, I've never used Mac. I started with Windows. But as we're talking about new users, it wasn't that long ago that I was a new Linux user.
Oh, tell me about that.
So I've been using Linux now for about 2 years. I guess we're getting close to 3. But I was absolutely done with Windows, so I didn't care if it looked like Windows or not. I just wanted something different. So for me, the design is nice, but when I'm looking at a distro, there's several things that I look for. One of it, can I easily install a dark theme? I get migraines easy. If I cannot easily install a dark theme, I'm not using that distro.
Well, that rules out elementary.
Right?
Depends on how easy you mean easy.
Over. I don't care if it's pretty. If it's going to give me a headache, it's useless. And then the next thing I look for is a workflow. Does the workflow work for me? I've never used elementary, so I can't speak to if it would work for me or not.
And how do you define workflow for you? Like mouse gestures are big for you, trackpad gestures, or
no, I don't use the mouse that much. One thing that I like is windows popping up where I had them last. So right now I've got 4 screens and I want them utilized properly. So when I open a window, I want it to go to where I'm going to see it so that I can track through, stay on my projects and not be distracted by taking a window somewhere.
Oh my God, then you must hate Plasma.
What?
Plasma
does that? Plasma's load stuff where you put it.
I was going to say, she loves Plasma.
Well,
you can make it do
Plasma
that.
works for me because it does.
You can make it do that.
Yeah,
it doesn't always do that by default.
No, Plasma by default does leave stuff where you tell it to go.
It does.
Oh,
No, it doesn't.
No.
Not on my machine. It doesn't.
Not on my machine.
Rocco, on your machine, everything does.
No, you can. I'm telling you, you can open Dolphin on this screen, my main screen, and the next time it'll open over there on the other screen all the time, until I tell it to. Like I go into the window manager options and I tell it, this is where I want you to open. This is how big I want it to open.
Lay the
right here.
It's always been
Force
really
it.
good for me in popping up where I used it last. It's always been great. That
Which version of Plasma?
With Kubuntu.
Kubuntu?
512.
Yeah, Kubuntu is great, but right now I'm on Neon, and I've had no problems with Neon.
1804 Neon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm on 6. I'm on the older one.
Same.
And I'm still having an issue.
All right, Paul, you've been sitting here all this time. What do you think of all this elementary conversation, Chrome OS, Chakra, anything? You got no audio yet, Paul.
He's bleeping himself out.
Yeah.
And again, you thought you guys would have to worry about me.
Well, there is good reason to not worry.
I watched a video on Dark One's channel about
I don't know what you're referring to.
A reaction video to Windows, Mac, Linux rant. Oh my gosh.
You have to have headphones all the time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a reason I say
amazing though. It just needed a beep button every couple of minutes.
I still want a clown horn every time someone does,
I'm just waiting for a release that he decides to censor himself, and then the entire time it's just.
Oh my goodness!
That's what it would be.
I don't know. That would be hilarious. That would be great.
But
what if Dark One did like the next like a Lubuntu video of voiceover? So Mike, you do the video editing, but like Dark One does like the voiceovers, and it's like an R-rated version, and you have a clean version.
So if he blanked out all of his swearing, then the truncated silence would get like a 10-second video.
It would sound like a emergency warning.
Actually, that would be perfect.
And thank you for watching this video.
That's
the only thing you hear him say.
So anyway, Paul.
I don't know. I've never made it through a Dark One video. Do you thank people at the end?
I never made it through. That's hilarious.
Hey, I have to subjugate myself to those crappy videos I'm usually reacting to. How do you think I feel?
Oh my gosh, Dark One,
we know
please,
how you feel.
please do a reaction video of your own reaction videos.
That'd be a lot of swearing there too.
What is this guy talking about? One thing I want to bring up about elementary, and Wendy, you'd mentioned the dark theme, and Dustin, you had brought it up as well. There's certain apps in elementary that open up with a dark theme.
Oh yeah,
like photos and videos, I believe, are two of them that open up with a dark theme.
That's interesting.
That is one thing that I'll say that doesn't match up in my head. So when I'm looking at it, it's beautiful, and then when I open up the photo, which I don't open them up, I rarely even use them, but the idea is when you open them up, it's a dark theme, and yet everything else is a light theme.
Yep.
And that to me breaks the cohesion altogether.
That blew me out because I think it was the terminal that's a dark theme, and
Yes,
I'm in a terminal all the time. Like that was, that's a good point. That was one of the things that just broke it for me too.
What do you guys
I'm trying to figure out how to get my other windows to have a dark theme, and I just couldn't make it jive.
Yeah,
because elementary tweaks, I believe you can do the dark theme, but
yes, you can.
But when it comes to photo editing and video editing, I've been a photographer for about 20 years, and so I've been working in a lot of different kinds of photo editing software. And when you do, usually those kind of applications do have dark themes.
Has to be.
And that has to do with how you see colors. If you have white surroundings, the colors will be off, and contrast will be off. So that's why most applications, professional, use dark themes when you do photo and video editing. So I guess that's what they are going for in elementary, trying to
be professional.
Professional line there. Yeah.
Well, you got a point. I mean, you definitely have a point with it, but these aren't detailed photo editing apps.
Yeah, they're
it's just
viewing,
the photo viewer and the video player. So basically, you can play a video on your hard drive.
Okay. I haven't used Elementor, so I didn't know. I just thought it was a photo editing software or something.
Well, Michael, you said you've been in photography for 20 years. So what have you used for your photography all these years?
I've been switching back and forth between Windows and Mac up until about 3 years ago, 4. And I've been using Linux for about 12 years, off and on. But it has never, or earlier, it has never been the photo editing software and color correction and calibration softwares have not been that good in Linux. So as a professional photographer, it was really hard to get your, how can I say this, good software and consistent software. So you could trust the workflow and the color corrections and the colors you were seeing on the screen. So you were forced to use Windows or Mac because they were the only ones putting energy and money into that kind of development. But for the last, I don't know exactly, but I would say for the last 3-4 years or so, maybe more, Linux has come a long way, and now actually it's no problem to keep a professional environment and doing professional work in Linux. I'm doing it, and I know Wendy's doing it. So yeah, and I know a lot of other photographers switching. I have had a couple of my photography buddies, I've switched them to Linux, and they are happy with it. So it just takes a little knowledge, and you have to help them out because it's new software, new names, things look different, and so it takes some getting used to. But it's totally doable, and it's working.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. What did you say that you're using for your like your image? Like the raw image stuff, like Darktable or whatever?
Darktable. The workflow I'm using is I port the images with the Rapid Photo Downloader, and then I'm doing the raw editing in Darktable. And then if I have to do I work a lot of with the black and white monochrome pictures. So sometimes I have to get into GIMP and fix stuff. So, but mostly Darktable.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of the App Center, because I think we need it we need that kind of professionalism, developers to come and polish these things so that people can trust these apps, because there's a consistency issue in the app
I think there's
software landscape.
When you say the App Center, you're referring to Elementary's App Center?
Yeah. I think I would say like 70 to 80% of my interest in Elementary came from what they're trying to do with the App Center. And then everything else is just like icing on the cake with design and cohesiveness and stuff like that.
I mean, I agree. I just think that the App Center is kind of restrictive in the sense of if you don't utilize their, blessed
design
structure, you can't be a developer who gets paid in the App Center. So like any cute.
But why is there a problem with that? Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, if there's a strict policy, why is there a problem with that? If you want unification,
if you're a cute developer, then you have no ability to be in the App Center and have no reason to have any interest in Elementary, and you can just move on and use something else.
So I have an answer to that.
So like the developer would just like you bringing someone to developers, and if that becomes the one to go to and suggest to people, then they would look at it and go, "Oh, I can't even put my software in their App Center. Why do I care?"
It's a valid point.
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind when I hear that kind of like the rebuttal of like, why isn't it more, I guess, or why is it why should it be? It should be more open to those kind of things. Is we got to be really honest. So we all know software development is hard. Mm-hmm. It's super hard, not just from a functionality standpoint, but consistency over the years, and also Linux design has sucked for so long.
How dare you're right.
And so
discover much.
Yeah, so they have to make those hard decisions in order to give the user some semblance of like, this is a real thing, and this is like big boys are doing this and big girls are doing this, and this is I can actually stick with this for a while. And they cannot. Seeing some of the stuff that some of the software in Linux over the years, I mean, it's getting better, no doubt. But to make a living off of it, they have to put in those quality controls, and that's just, I think that's the only. To be honest, that's the only way.
I mean, that's what he did a little bit more eloquently, but that was the point that I was trying to make, is that, I have no issues with Qt. Well, okay, I have lots of issues with Qt, but as a developer myself, I have my own understanding of my own directive, and if that's the field that they want GDK support, they want Vala support, they want those components in that infrastructure, then you have to play in that wheelhouse. If you want your application to run too dependent on one side or the other, then you need to rethink the way that it functions. And if it's not functioning,
a toolkit, so you don't have to build the functionality based around any kind of like creating a thing that it can use any type of button you're using. The whole reason to use those toolkits is because it makes it easier to make the software.
I understand that. And in a KDE environment or a Plasma environment, the Qt development toolkit is better suited. But you still have to build it in such a way. I mean,
with that in mind.
Yeah, with that in mind.
I think the same thing is true with GTK. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But that's the point. That's the point, though. That if you're building it with one thing in mind and you're like vomiting it on the App Center, it's going to have. And then that might encourage more developers, yes. But more does not necessarily mean better, because when you open it up to more, there is a quality threshold that you open yourself and make yourself vulnerable to. And I think it's more so. To be honest, I think it's more about quality control than it is them being about anti this UX or design or that kind of thing. I think
ultimately Elementary has, like, they're really nice. It's a really good layout. There's so many great things to say about it. But I think they've put themselves in a corner and like in a little box that makes it very hard for them to expand after a certain level, because the fact that they have this dependency on GTK and Vala. And Vala was made by GTK, made by the GNOME people. And Vala is not really maintained by the GNOME people anymore. It's kind of maintained by Elementary.
Community, right? Yeah.
So that means that the framework that they want to use is their framework. Then you have the GTK aspect, and GTK is not cross-platform. So the vast majority of Windows people have never heard of it and do not care. So you're wanting them to learn a toolkit and learn a programming language with a framework that they've never heard of, and that's the introductory thing that you have to use. that part puts them in a situation where they're going to have
to be slow.
So many
But
people.
the same thing could be said about QT.
No,
And that's
QT
the-
is
No, QT actually is cross-platform. 'Cause
Even
I've done
Android
stuff with
can
it in both Linux and on Mac, and
And it has
basically
a very
automatically compiling
accessible
it. And a couple
but
history too.
all of this relies on the fact that it's our perception of elementary being put in the Linux box.
Yeah.
Okay. Elementary developers themselves state all of these things that you guys have mentioned here up front. They already say that this is the way it is as far as the App Center. This is what we want. They're not like trying to hide anything about that.
Yeah.
So it's us trying to put them in the Linux box to say you're not playing right with the Qt developers, or you're not playing right with this. It's their operating system that they're building. It's their vision of where they want to go with it. To me, they're allowed to go wherever they want to go with it.
In order for them to overcome the problem with the toolkit,
scale.
they would have to become the third operating system, period.
But again, that's us putting that on them.
So I think Mike has
saying that's us posing
I'm not
that
talking
question.
about Linux. I'm talking about like if you're talking
general.
about them having their own.
No, I'm saying
ecosystem.
it's us posing the question: can they be the other operating system? Can they compete with Windows or Mac? That's us putting them on them.
All right, so
I mean,
Mike,
what are they trying to do then?
Let me.
They're doing their own thing.
There's the perfect question, Mike. This is the perfect question. So the paradigm is like be the scrappy garage, created in a garage type of developer and project, and that's sexy and that's cool and that's romanticized. And then you get the other extreme, like try to become big and corporate. Now more than ever, the indie people, the people who, and they actually use that language, indie OS or whatever on their marketing and their website. The indie scene for any industry, whether it's music, art, whatever, is actually on the rise. And so you can actually live off the middle ground of not being corporate and not being crappy, undependable, like that kind of thing.
I agree with that for sure.
So I think Mike's, and let me know if I got this right, Mike. But Rocco, I think what Mike is saying, if they really wanted to grow, he questions whether or not Vala is really the good decision to grow. And I'm not sure why they're so dependent on that either. I could see GTK, but they chose that. My thing is, I agree that I wish they did chose something else that can help with scaling faster. I think the pace of scaling for them is they're okay with slow and deep growth because they're creating a huge fan base. It's just the start of a huge fan base. So it's like, do you want 1,000 raving fans, or do you want 30,000 who are like, they think it's cool,
Well, no, I get it. I mean, I get it that whether it was a good decision for Vala or I get all that. But the idea is, to me, and I'm just sitting back as a regular user, to me, they're doing their own thing. And it's kind of like you either like it or you don't.
Yeah.
And you move on.
Is there a technical reason why they?
What I'm trying to say, that I'm not saying I don't like it because of not using something like Qt or something. That's not my point. I'm saying like its growth problem is dependent on the fact that they're using a toolkit and they're using a programming language that no one outside of
that world
ecosystem is using it. Nope. So if someone does want to join in the Linux ecosystem, or they do want to join in the ecosystem of elementary, they have to learn something brand new.
Man,
is there a technical reason why they can't? I understand the GTK, but is there a technical reason why they can't let other languages into the store? Because there's bindings for C++, JavaScript, Python.
They just choose not to.
They're going for that cohesive.
They support Genie at least, which is a Vala. You can apparently compile that down to Vala code. Do they support Genie in the store? Programming language?
Probably. I don't. Their main thing is that as long as it outputs as Vala, that's the thing. So if you have something that you can write in and then convert it to Vala, that might be fine. I haven't looked into that, but they said that Vala is their.
The biggest thing for me is I can build stuff in JavaScript and actually run it in in elementary OS with no issues. I actually can make all the calls that I need. I can pull in everything that I need to be able to do. And, you know, I work in, you know, in Node.js and in Electron. I know you have your issues. I get it.
I'm kidding.
Have my issues
I
with
actually
Qt,
Electron every day. I don't care.
but for me, that works in functionality because a lot of the times I'm dealing with web apps that I'm having to integrate, and I need to be able to build the issues, and so I need to be able to have that functionality. It works.
So can you put your apps into the store then?
I'm not really worried about pulling it into the store. I'm worried about using the functionality that they've integrated into EOS and actually functionally allowing it to just adapt. My app adapts to them. They
but
don't
isn't that
adapt
because you're writing it through because they're using similar APIs that the GNOME shell's using? You can utilize JavaScript.
Oh yeah, and that's the beautiful part about it is because of the functionality that they have integrated, I can actually pull from that, and I can make my app look like their app and not worry about it. And that's the functionality that I like because I can build an app that I can throw on a GNOME distribution or a distribution using GNOME or an XFCE distribution and even sometimes Plasma. And my apps look the same. They don't care. They run and all I have to do is use like a CSS file, and that CSS file just pulls in the pieces and components.
Yeah, if you're using an Electron app, I mean, those, to be fair, Electron is probably it's taking over a lot of space for the developer side. And that kind of defeats, like, using Electron allows you to manipulate your interface heavily. So you could, you could completely do that and use whatever distro you wanted. And if people who are coming to elementary were doing it as web developers and web app developers, then they'd probably be fine with they were just using Electron.
But even Electron aside, like, you can use like GJS bindings or node bindings in GTK to create apps for elementary.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I actually use.
I wonder if the crazy theory for them is because the same thing with the user base. They're okay with the pace of growth being slower than they otherwise like an average person would want, because they rather have that deep fan base, that deep commitment. If they're doing the same thing on the developer side, like if you even dare try to start learning Vala, that means you got to love something about this project and where it's going. And if that's the barrier and you overcome that barrier, it's almost like they don't have to worry about you competing with competing your time with other projects and other platforms. That if you actually went through the pain of going Vala, and which does have performance benefits, they actually that might be a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were. That's one of the reasons why they kept on with Vala.
Maybe not wanting to rewrite the code base.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have right now. So Budgie is written in Vala. We, like in Ubuntu Budgie, we're doing some work here. So guess what language I'm learning right now? Not because I want to, but because I need to.
There it is.
Because the whole thing is written in it, right? And there was a post by the Solus guys on Reddit that basically called out that they're going to stick with GTK for Budgie 11.
Wow.
So my guess is that they're probably just going to stay on Vala.
Wow. Well, it makes sense.
It's a guess anyways, to probably avoid a ground up rewrite, and especially with the, questions around a certain someone there right now, like why shred the whole code base that you have just to start over, and if they're sticking with GTK anyways,
Yeah. Well, I know they sell shirts. They sell T-shirts on the elementary store about Vala developer shirts. So it's like they're.
But I'm talking about Solus at this point, right? Because they're not doing Budgie in Qt like they originally talked about.
Yeah, so I guess we should see Solus pushing for Vala developers soon.
Well, maybe. I mean, that's what the whole desktop's written in, right?
Time for some Solus T-shirts for Vala.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like on our team, like we have guys that are spending time converting from Python to Vala. That's what they're doing right now because we need more people writing Vala for what the future may bring.
They must be so mad.
Oh no! I mean, technically,
just like coding in anger.
I play in both fields on that one. Yeah. I mean, I do have to use Python for some things, and I've built stuff in Vala. But again, that's why I kind of went to the Electron side of things to kind of couple my dependency on trying to specifically work in whatever wheelhouse I'm having to play in.
Yeah. I do.
So
I do regret that.
I just got one thing to say. EB, when are you going to rewrite Invala?
I'm working on it. It's in the pipeline, don't worry. It's just a short afternoon pet project.
While you're doing it, can you fix Pulse Audio? Simon is just slacking.
I was going to say, Simon's slacking on that fixing Pulse thing.
Yeah, he's in the YouTube chat, so get on him.
Yeah, let's go, Simon. Let's get Pulse fixed finally.
Speaking of sort of similar, somewhat, I'm using Ubuntu 18.10.
Dude, I gotta try that soon. That's on my list.
Yes, you do.
It's warming up on me.
I'm hopping to Ubuntu right now.
Simon said in the YouTube chat, I'm working on it.
I do Ubuntu on that netbook I have that I like to torture with the remaining 32-bit distros.
EB.
Maybe I should take Michael's advice and install Ubuntu on my Chromebook, right?
Actually, I did that on my CR48, which is the original Chromebook. I put Ubuntu 1804 on it.
Do they have an ARM version though? That might be the.
No, it's AMD 64. It works.
Yeah, the CR42.
No, I'm saying if Ubuntu has an ARM version.
I don't think there's an ARM.
No, there's
no.
Bummer.
EB, what do you think of Elementary, dude?
Oh, fantastic.
Juno.
I think it's wonderful. And I think 99% of people, once again, are completely missing the point of Elementary, which just makes me giggle. It really does. I think the underlying theme with Elementary is I think it's going to be an absolutely wonderful platform for young, obscure, unknown developers. What a great way of writing an app, getting it somewhere, getting your name out there. And I see quite a few people, and I had this conversation, I think it was with Zeb or maybe Garth, and they said, yeah, but, you know, developers are, you know, they're looking to earn 35, 45, 55,000 pounds a year. They're not going to be interested in Elementary OS. And I said, yeah, but what happens if you're a 16-year-old kid in South Africa or in South America? What a great place to write a little unique app, stick it on there, get $1. I think it's terrific. I really, really do. Absolutely fantastic. What a great concept.
Yep, I agree.
That's a good point about the teenager approach.
And if you get it in your software store, then you can talk to Canonical and get it in a snap and get it spread everywhere. So getting it into their store doesn't automatically lock you into their ecosystem.
But isn't it about expectations at that point? That people have the expectation now that snaps are just packages you download for free like you would on your package manager. But if you establish that expectation that it's a pay what you want ecosystem, then the money transaction isn't a jarring thing at all. It's just like, oh, this is just how it is.
I think it's different.
Canonical is working on that too. Elementary is not the only place that's happening.
Yes, snaps have they're working on making it where you can purchase them, but they have a lot of proprietary software that you get the snap, and there's a license structure where you can activate the snap. Through,
I mean, it's called
whoever you buy it from.
It's the Snappy store, right? I mean, obviously they're
they just call it a store. It's not technically.
I know, but I mean, obviously they're going for a theme there, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say
they're building on something.
It's in the name. It's in the marketing of the name. Yeah. Snappy store.
They're probably going to
Software Center.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They probably did name it that for the future use of making it.
I'm sure it's the future. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But from a user point of view, that I have constructive criticisms of Elementary, and people say, well, you just don't see the point of the design and whatever. But I mean, if there are some constructive criticisms from a user point of view, I'd like to see that they can take that on board and have that vision, because then you get more users if you've got more options within the desktop, and then you are supporting the developers more because the users will come.
Colin, but the same thing could be, you could point that criticism, and I'm not bashing GNOME when I say this, but you can point that same criticism, right? Like the vanilla GNOME.
Well, you can't because Elementary does look good.
Touche. But I meant the constructive
without
criticism
extensions
that users give, that in this case, to your point, Colin, you're saying elementary doesn't take. Like, my biggest complaint is the lack of a unifying dark mode, because like Wendy and other people, I can't stand the bright coloring that is defaultly in elementary.
Yeah.
That is a valid complaint. It's not one that's not one they're looking to solve, though.
No,
and you can point that kind of criticism at GNOME, who aren't going to take any criticism like that into consideration. They'll just say install an extension.
Well, they'll say install a theme that we're going to get rid of soon.
Yeah. But
wait, before you can install that theme, you have to install an extension so that you can install a theme.
That's true
And
too.
install an extension that will break next release. Yeah.
I know they got the design theory, and I'll harp on it a little bit, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but if you have options within a desktop, you then get people coming to that desktop because the options are there to suit the workflow of what the way people want to work, right? Okay, so they want their design to suit what they want, but surely there's got to be open interpretations of how other people like their workflow, because they might want to use elementary. It looks nice, and there's nothing better than having bringing someone along and saying, check this out. Doesn't this look good? This is professional, but but it lacks choices. And I know,
Colin, you got a great point, and for any other distro, it would be a valid point. But with elementary, they already know that they're not going to reach everybody. Like, they already know that they're not going to get, say, you to run their operating system and that's not what they're going for. They're okay with that. They're looking to have that, so to speak, walled garden. But in that, the reason that they're doing that is so that they can have that beautiful operating system, so that it can be cohesive. So it's not this open world where any app goes and any theme goes. And
well, they should have more
so that you can provide that. Actually, they're trying to get to the same place you're getting, only in a different way. They're trying to have that one operating system that you can say, man, this is beautiful. This is great. They're just getting to it in a different way.
How does that help the developers who want to make the dollar and they're happy with they're not going to get more users or whatever, but if they do get more users, then more people will be buying probably apps from the developers because they like it. So that's
a gamble.
The perspective. Okay.
It's definitely a gamble, but it's the one it's the direction they're going in. You know what I mean? They're taking that gamble to say, this is the direction we're going in, this is the goal. You may go a different direction, and in the end it might not work out. In the end, who knows? Maybe nobody likes it and nobody wants to use it. But I think they have a good shot at making it to the goal. If we would advance time right now and say from here to however long it takes to get to that goal, in the end, I think it'll be a good option.
What's the likelihood that we're looking at like a boiled frog approach, sort of like, they're starting with what they have now, but then they slowly start to add more and more complexity to it, like in such a way that people don't realize it's not as jarring, like, going from GNOME to KDE, for example, like going from no options to tons of options. But if they start adding in these complexities to the interface and to the desktop as a whole, that maybe that's a better approach, and they can then start bringing in more people without necessarily alienating the people who liked what they started with.
Yeah, I agree.
To be honest with you, I think that they don't ever intend to offer a lot of settings as far as KDE settings to change things, but in the fact of them adding all new features like, say, Nightlight and all, you end up getting more settings just because they're adding new features. And like you said with the boiled frog, they'll end up adding more and more and more. And like I said, you advance time, you'll get to the point where you'll look back and you'll say, man, elementary started with no settings and now they have all these. But that's, to me, going to be coming from features rather than actual, here we want you to have these settings so you can change them.
Yeah.
Well, they could also add a feature like a dark mode.
That would be awesome. Who knows? They may end up doing that, Michael. I mean, I'm sure that is high on the suggestion list.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, a lot of people like dark modes, so I'm sure that it's not the first time they would have heard it.
I don't think it would be, but I'm just saying, like, as far as like, I think they could. I think you're both right. I think that by doing it, adding features and adding customizations that way over time makes them that much more of a a bigger player. But I don't think that currently where it is now that it has that, like, I think Colin is right about the few choices you have is kind of a detriment to some people. Like, some people don't want the choice and it's perfect for them. But then there's another side of it, not even tinkerers. They just want to have, like, maybe I don't like the dock being on the bottom. I want it to be on the left. That kind of thing. Just a simple, slight change.
Yeah, but I think I think what they are doing, though, that is more important than anything is they are building the foundation of a mindset that it is okay, in fact, good to actually pay developers for the software you're getting in Linux.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think that is the most important thing they're doing.
I hate the idea that Linux developers are not paid in general. Like, the fact that there's programming development communities that get lots of money and don't pay their developers. I think it's horrible. Like, the fact that GNOME and KDE got, like, these massive donation things and their developers are not paid.
I would have to say most software I pay for on Linux is through Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I will pay for software just like a couple like a donation here and there and stuff like that, just because of, like, Kden Live. I rely on it. I depend on its existence. So I'll give you some money. I don't know how, like, I can't really justify how much it's really worth to me, but $20, sure, here you go. But if just a few people are doing that, it doesn't give that same vibe to them, and they don't really get in like a big benefit, like, oh, hey, thanks for that donation. But if they charged, like, anything, there's a negative of saying that teenagers in other countries across the world, like EB was talking about, they might not be able to pay $5 of US or £5 and whatever. So, like, there's a double-edged sword there, depending on how you
well, Michael, wasn't it Krita that has their app on the Windows Store?
Yes.
And they said they've made more from that than they have through donations.
Yes. They've done, I think they said they got, like, maybe twice as much more.
That right there is telling. You're on in that aspect, you're on a closed platform, and the open source application is getting more money from the closed platform than the main open source platform it's built on.
Yeah,
and that's kind of telling of the community in of itself.
Yeah. I think the sheer number of users, though, that are on that platform comparatively.
Right. Plus, I think
Windows
Plus,
Store.
I think elementary, Matt. I think that, like Dave had mentioned, I think that's the idea of elementary is to give the developers the money that they should have from developing it.
Yeah.
And
I completely agree. Like I'm not disagreeing with that. Like, my point is, it's a different mentality. Like, if you look at I'm just using the Krita as the example right now, but if you look at the Windows end of things and that mentality, Windows users are I don't want to say used to paying for software, but they're
used to paying for software.
Yeah, they're used to paying for it.
But
Linux
you picked that one,
for some reason have this mentality of, if it's open source, it has to be free.
Yeah, but I don't always think it's that either. I think part of that is true. But I think the other part of it is there really has been no option, like in the elementary store, where you have the pay option. You go and you download software in most Linux distributions. There's no option to pay for it.
Ubuntu,
sure, there's a support. Yeah, there's a support button, but there's not a button right there in your face when you go to install it.
Saying, if you like this, pay some money.
Right.
Yeah. Since Level 4, you could do that. You could have done that in Ubuntu.
Yeah, but that's not around anymore.
Actually, but I'm saying, like, it's not a brand new thing of paying for the software.
It's not a brand new thing. But what I'm saying in most distros,
they're making it a standard, not just on every once in a while.
I agree.
But isn't that a whole nother reason why they should open it up to more than just the Vala programming language, so that, like, my son who's 13 and loves C++ and GTK, he could write a program, get it in the store, and make a couple bucks and get all happy, like EB said?
I mean, yeah, that'd be great. I work on a project that's GTK based, and it's built in C++, so it's not going to go in.
Yeah, so I think, again, what I said earlier, I think it's a matter of expectation that Michael was talking about Linux developers getting paid. Well, we could pay, say, the Kden Live guys for their effort in putting together Kden Live. But Kden Live is built on other projects, so do we now get like nickel and dime because we got to pay the Python guys, we got to pay the Melt guys, we got to pay the other, now the Kden Live guys, and eventually.
Well, I don't think it should be a you have to.
But it's about an expectation now, because Linux has been around for a long time, and all of this software has just been available, and everyone's just kind of built it because they need it for whatever reason. And then you're going to say, well, okay, like here's some software, here's some Linux software you can pay for, which Ubuntu did back in 2010, etc. And it didn't work out because not just because some was paid and some wasn't, but now people were like, well, I don't really want to, like, I'm used to getting my applications for free here. Like, I'm willing to donate, but I don't want to be forced to pay money for them, right?
I think that's
where Elementary goes right, is that they do the pay what you want, as well as like you can get the application for free.
Right.
But again, how do we pay these? How do we pay these things? Because like now, like if you buy, like I said with Kden Live, you buy Kden Live for $20. How much of that goes to all the people who build the infrastructure that Kden Live is built upon? And
separate things for Melton.
Yeah, exactly. Like
the nice thing about having it where you can pay what you want as well is, as a developer, if you charged X amount of dollars for every single download, you're going to get a predictable amount. But through my experience in Boy Scouts with charging this amount versus asking for donations, you're going to get a lot more asking for donations, doing a pay what you want, than you will by saying you need to pay this amount of dollars to use our services.
Yep, I agree. Because then there's no forcing anybody. You don't feel forced to pay. You pay what. And Adam, you had said about overkill, basically, of having to pay for all of these apps that you use. And I don't think anybody would advocate people paying for every app that they use. I think you should pay for the ones that help you the most.
Yeah.
So, for example, like with my stuff, and I would say OBS and Kden Live, those two would be ones that I would donate to because they help me out so much. I might not donate to Firefox or Chrome, or Chromium or whatever other ones, but those I would. And I think if everybody did that for the ones you use and most, and the ones everybody uses, it would even out.
So the issue is not necessarily. So the issue mainly is just we need an easy way to get money into developer hands, because you can at this point donate to the projects you like. Now, as far as whether or not the developers get that money is beyond your control, and it could be the same with the Elementary store. They say they pay the developers, it's fine, but like if you can't get if you need an easy way to get that money into their hands, I could see that being very useful, but. I mean, at the end of the day, why does like a portion of that have to go to the Elementary guys? Why can't I just, I like OBS. Let me just give OBS money.
Right.
Like a portion of that goes to Elementary just because they host.
Well, that would also be an option. I mean, like you can always donate, be above and beyond what you would put in for an App Store donation.
But if they get like a percentage of it or something.
You can contact the developers. I mean, at this point, most people have PayPal or the equivalent for whatever,
There's a ton of projects that don't even have an opportunity for anyone to donate at all. Like, there's
like
a lot of
my OS, you can't donate for it because I know it wouldn't have anybody donating. So I don't even bother setting it up. Like, why put in the work when I know I won't have any donations?
Well, the amount of work is very little. Go to PayPal, make a button, you're done.
Right. But then I also
think that mentality is detrimental to the potential of getting donations, because if you assume that you're not going to get it, you're definitely not going to get it if you don't try.
Right. Literally, I am just waiting until I get people emailing me asking, how do I donate? And at that point, I'll be
Thomas,
yes.
Thomas, how do I donate?
How do I donate?
How do I donate?
I do not have a way currently set up.
Well, maybe you should think about it.
Oh, well. And I'll set up a way and let you know.
Maybe you should think about setting up a way.
Yes, I'll just give that money to someone else.
Yeah, I wanted to give it to Draugr OS, but
Yeah,
there it is. Perfectly fine. I mean,
I'm
a zero in, zero out kind of thing, So I'm doing pretty good right there.
Well, I just think that the vast majority of I think more than not that these projects don't have a way to donate, and they all should. Like, for example, like it was very hard to find a way to do it for Caden Live, and there's also a lot of projects that it's just impossible. And you can contact them, and sometimes to trying to contact them, you have to find them. You have crossed your fingers and hope that in somehow real time, someday, sometime of the day, that you can find them on IRC. Like there's a lot of places. Like for example, Caden Live just recently started using something like Telegram, where you could actually contact them outside of when they're there, and that happened maybe like 2 months ago. And the only reason I know that is because I created the Telegram group and then waited for them to join.
And even then it was like delayed. It was like, sorry, I wasn't around.
But yeah, there was actually a long time where I was just it was me and Rocco sitting in there, and occasionally some random person would join, and then eventually they found it and then they joined it, and I was like, here, you have ownership now.
Yep.
Like, and I was just waiting for them to do it. Now they're doing it, and you can contact them anytime you want to. But there's a lot of projects that are just don't give you a way to contact them or don't give you a way to donate.
So Thomas, this may or may not apply to you, but I totally respect like the artist in terms of like when it comes to creating something and just creating it for the sake of creating it.
I mean, I can't believe the gravity of what's happened in Linux in the last 7 days. Just think about it for a second, right? The gorgeous Wendy Hill, her family all now have, of course, Linux on their computers, and they are now all slaves to American Truck Simulator.
Very true.
Number two, Michael Tuck's Digital is on Lubuntu. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Really? That is mind-blowing. Michael saw the promo video. Fantastic, dude.
It's Plasma Light.
Yeah.
It's not Plasma, but it's still cute.
Yeah, it's Lubuntu Plasma, but nevertheless, look, just think about that for a second. Elementary is released. Fantastic. And my youngest son rang me up yesterday and said, Dad, he's a developer, by the way, primarily C# and Xamarin. He said, please hurry up and come home. I have a gift for you. You're going to love it. And I'm like, okay, fine, brilliant. What's he bought me? New graphics card, expensive gaming chair. Wow, this is going to be good. I get home, he says, there you go, Dad. This is just for you. He bought me a sticker. I went, okay, fine. Wow. So the look of disappointment appeared on the face straight away. And it was like, no, you got to check this sticker out. It's the future. It will blow you away. Do you know what the sticker is? It's on my monitor now. It's the Microsoft Office little 4 square logo. And it says Microsoft Azure Sphere. And on the other side is a Tux penguin. And it says the future. Wow. Is that bug-like or what? And we're all sitting here analysing Elementary to the nth degree. Stick it on your PC, enjoy it, pay some young developer $1 in South America who will be made up. What else is there to say?
There is a lot to say.
Things to complain about Elementary. I'm just kidding.
Real quick though. This is a great point, but it's a serious point because it's really interesting. Because if Microsoft continues with the rate of change that they're making these pivots that is Linux friendly, open source friendly, whether you agree with the intentions being honest or not, that's happening. They created this space. Linux desktop becomes more and more of a threat. With the advent of snaps and Flatpaks, the desktop becomes less relevant because if you could throw it on any system and it works, the desktop becomes less relevant. The last thing I'll say real quick is that when it comes to this is why I think the App Center is like our last hope at the desktop being like top class for a user experience is because the App Center will fund the developer model in a way that you create first class apps for first class ecosystem and then boom. Now, what's not going to happen though, if we don't pay these developers, like Mike said, if they don't make it easy for us to pay them, they are going to, like this guy had his daughter having him like, hey, Daddy, be quiet when he was like talking in the background. Right before he's going to click donate, he's going to have to like, go hand with a family thing, and then he's not going to click donate, and then the washing machine is going to break down or something. So these microseconds of opportunities to donate are crucial. So if you don't have the PayPal button up there, if you don't have those things up there, if you want more money, Thomas, and I'm saying that you do, but if you want more money to do more stuff with your OS, you have to make it a first class priority to make a pathway there. Now, I respect you 100% if your thing is, hey, I'm almost like an artist. I just want to make music. I don't really care about making money or making it like last forever. It's for the moment. It's ethereal, whatever. That's cool too. But you got to know that with your heart of hearts, that that's who you are and that's the playground you're playing in. Otherwise, you have to really say, hey, I definitely have to put something up instead of waiting around till someone asks you about it, because they're going to be about to give it to you, but they're not going to ask you about it. They'll just not give and leave it at that. So this is my 2 cents on it. Sorry.
And some people will feel better if they can throw you $1 or $2 and you're keeping them from feeling good about themselves.
Yeah, look at Twitch. Look at all the people that make money just playing games, right? Like, you know, people love to throw money at people.
2 people give tonight.
Yeah. Two people gave like super chats.
Actually, I saw an infographic once, and it was talking about how Linux users are more willing, statistically, to pay more money for apps than Windows users are, which is really ironic. Because even though you can make more money by making a Windows app, if you make a Linux app, you can charge your users more.
There's a difference between, because the Linux users appreciate the software more because but the problem is, the biggest problem because of that is the users are willing to pay more and they're willing to pay, but the developers don't ask.
Yeah.
And that, like, for example, the project that I work on is a download manager, and I've been working on it for 10 years now. And when I first started using, well, actually more than that, I don't know. But when I first started using it and I first started joining with it, I was like, this is great. Like, I want to help work with it and whatever. And then like a year later, I was like, hey, do you get any donations for this app? He was like, no one's ever donated before. Like maybe like $5 or something. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, where do you ask? What do you mean? Well, like, you ask them, that's how you get donations. He's like, well, go ahead and do that. And then I became the project manager of it. And then we started asking for people and they started donating it. Because it was just like, hey, you just let them know that you would like to. It would be like, because a lot of people look at the free thing and like, oh, they don't care enough to even ask us for the money, so we'll just take it for free. So if you just ask, it doesn't imply that you appreciate it, and we're looking forward to doing that as more of a long-term goal. And I think that the biggest problem with the ecosystem and the expectation that the users have, even though they're willing to do it, people just don't ask.
So and even those that can't afford it, they will at least go, look, I can't afford anything right now, but thank you.
Yeah.
You will get the more verbal support in addition to any cash that might come in.
And that's maybe find another way to give back to the project too.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, giving back to the project doesn't mean just code. I think that's something a lot of people.
It could also mean making a Ubuntu release video.
It could mean that.
Well, like Michael, good video.
No, seriously, there's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, Wendy, the pixel fixer.
Yeah.
Right?
But I'll be honest though, like I personally feel like this is my soapbox moment, but like if we live in America and you have us even, what's $5 a month? I know in third world countries,
Starbucks coffee.
They use it's one less coffee drink, right? But like in third world countries, like the margins to play with disposable income is like so thin you can't even think about asking. But if we live in a first world country, I think every user, I mean, imagine if every person who uses a Linux operating system more than like part time would give just $5 a month to something, or $5 a year to something.
So
how could that change the ecosystem of developers?
I've been doing that. I've been doing that with the distro that has a founder that has been AWOL for a few months. So
and you take that money somewhere else then if you feel like a certain way about it, or you keep it.
Well,
it's up to you.
okay. So here's my question. Now that you brought that up, because I wasn't going to bring that up, but I'm also a contributor to Solus, not a contributor, a patron of Solus, and I was, because of Ike's passion and because of everything he stood for as far as the quality of everything that he was going for. And without him being there, I feel like I want to not be a patron anymore. But I also don't want to take away anything from the guys that are there that have been contributing alongside Ike. So you're in a quandary where it's not the operating system I started donating to, but yet also have many other developers that were helping along the way all that time as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, the question is for you then, Rocco, is were you donating because of the head of the project, or were you donating because of the project? There's two different distinctions there. If you don't see the project the same,
I don't see the project the same.
So then, in your specific case,
there's your answer.
There's your answer.
I'm still contributing a little bit, but I actually diverted some of those funds to Destination Linux last month.
Cool.
And here's the other question too: that Patreon account, who controls it? Where is that money actually going right now?
Where's it?
That's definitely something.
Is it going to Ike, or is it going to the project?
Yeah, that's something I definitely think about, and I think Michael brought that up earlier about the GNOME folks, and if I want to donate money to something, I want to know where that money is going, right? Like not to be political here, but when I get taxed by the government, I don't know exactly where my specific money is going, right? But like as going back to elementary with the App Center, they're up front like this percentage goes to elementary, this percentage goes to the developer. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I donate to say the KDE Foundation, KDEV or whatever they are, or the GNOME Foundation or whatever, that's their central place to pull in all the money. How do I know that the guy who works on, Nautilus, who I feel really bad for, he gets the money instead of, going to some, putting on Guadec or whatever? Like, how do I know where my money's going?
Well, the thing is about most of these big foundation-based projects is that the money doesn't go to the developers at all. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Is an example that it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know why these projects do that. Mozilla does that for a lot of the developers, but they also have a lot of employees. So there are some exceptions to it. And Mozilla is one of the exceptions, but there are a lot of projects that have massive donations coming in, and they spend it on like administrative stuff or whatever. There's like 3 or 4 people I can think of off the top of my head that work on KDE like full time, but they're paid by a separate company to do it, not the foundation. And I think that's just a really bad idea. Like it implies that they only care about the promotional aspects of the thing or the administrative aspects of it, even though the developers are the quintessential fundamental people of the project, and they're not being even a little bit like a part-time payment or something, just something. It's just kind of weird to me. So like a lot of people like Blue Systems is paying a lot of people to work on KDE.
I'd just like to say very quickly, Wendy, I don't know who said it, but you need to donate $1. You need to erase Wendy Hill off the face of the earth, and you need to become Miss Pixel Fixer. How cool!
That's a good YouTube channel name.
Yep,
that is.
Plus one.
That is beyond good. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Then you should donate to EB for the idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
well, when it comes to donations,
carry on, Wendy.
So there are a couple developers that are helping in these massive changes in GIMP. And so I'm not donating to GIMP as a project, but I'm donating to one of the developers that is working on these features that are coming to the program that I love, and more of them that will be coming to the program. I know what he's working on. I see the vision, and so I'm supporting him in that because I use those things every day, right? So sometimes it's not necessarily, there may be an overall project, but sometimes it's worth
the person
reaching out to the individual developers and saying, I love the work you're doing. Thank you so much. It makes my life easier.
Yeah, these people aren't surfaced enough.
Yep.
These people aren't surfaced enough.
And that part is hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of developers don't want to be in the public view, like a lot.
Right.
Most of them.
Some of that I think is creatives in general. I mean, myself as a creative, it's hard to say, hey, here's my work, pay me for it. I mean, it's so hard to walk into a business and say, it is totally worth paying me the money to take these pictures.
Michael would have no problem walking into a business saying that.
I'm a very shy person.
Ask for money.
Yeah,
right.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a very shy person. I don't like talking about myself.
Yeah, right.
That's digital.com.
Wendy, do
But
you
one
have
thing-
a donation or PayPal set up for your photography?
No, I don't.
Why not?
But most of it I'm not I'm not
Actively.
sharing, you know, to be used as your wallpaper or whatever. If I was doing that, then yes. Or if I created a group of pictures, maybe food pictures that could be used to, you know, for whatever.
The other thing is,
source.
Wendy. The other thing is, Wendy, if you want to see the greenbacks rolling in, I would heartily suggest you immediately book a session with the gorgeous Barbara, one of her cat's rear ends, sell them as wallpapers.
Oh my gosh, I would totally pay for a
You know,
Barbara wallpaper set.
Wait, when you started EB, I was like cringing. I had no idea where you were going with this.
But I think, can you see Ubuntu's next release? What would it be called?
Cats
the
of
Barbara's
Barbara.
rear end cat. It would just be awesome. And
Yes, they need to word it differently because that didn't sound very good.
Yeah.
Domestic derriere.
Need some wordsmithing on that. Yep.
The cat
We're gonna run out of that stuff eventually.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. He's our comic
No,
relief.
it's good.
You know?
It's good. It's good.
But one thing, guys, I've and that's not just elementary, but Linux in general, and paying for stuff. I mean, to me, it's I sometimes feel that the whole world of Linux and the whole community sometimes it lacks a sense of direction. Projects are forking everywhere, and developers are so diverse and doing different stuff, and they are sometimes I miss the sense of direction in the whole Linux movement. So when an distro comes along like Elementary, and which have so clear vision of what they want to do,
yes,
they give a sense of direction. They are going somewhere, and it's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something that will people coming to them, because people in general want some direction somewhere. I'm not talking about us tinkers here. I'm talking about the average Joe, just using the computer for whatever, YouTube or whatever. And I think I told you earlier about my photography and my photography friends who I've converted to Linux. Some of them have sometimes told me that, how can this be for free? Why doesn't it cost? It's good software. How can the developers give this out for free? They can't grasp it. They can't understand it. It's weird to them. And I have tried to explain to them how they can donate to developers and to projects and so on. And a lot of them do. And that's also one thing. When you have something that you feel that you see the path forward, when you see a sense of direction and you can see this is going somewhere. I trust this. I trust the developers, and then people will be more. They will pay for stuff. They will be more eager to pay. They will want to contribute. But when you have projects forking all over the place, and you feel like you can trust the developers. You can trust that when you pay for something, that it will keep going in that path and have the same vision as you have. So that's, for me, is a problem sometimes. I can feel that there is no, I don't trust where it's going. So that's why, I don't know, should I donate, should I not? Where is it going?
That's such a great point, Michael, because
Super
that's
great
exactly
point.
why I started donating to Ike and Solus.
Super great point. Trust is everything.
He was such a wonderful spokesperson. And even though I didn't use Solus, I loved hearing from him
Me
on
too.
so many outlets. He was such a wonderful personality and had great commentary, and I miss hearing from him. I just
and like Michael said, he was going somewhere. Like he let you know, this is where we're headed. This is what we're gonna be doing, and that's what made you feel good about Solus. It wasn't just a stagnant operating system.
Yeah.
It was going. It had a direction it was going in.
That's why I used
Bottom
to
line, projects needs to say, "This is our vision. This is where we're going." Like I was talking about earlier with Kim.
Yeah, because
I see the vision. I know what the goal is, and I want to be part of making sure it gets there.
Yeah, it feels like the communication for Solus has just fell off so much in the last few months.
Yeah, it's almost like it's it's not a dead project, but you feel like it is.
It's on
and when
the
it
ropes.
first started, I did the same thing. I don't use it because it didn't play nicely with all my hardware. But I did donate because I thought that the concept, I really liked the concept of it. I still periodically, I use Ubuntu Mate, and I periodically donate to it.
Well, I was going to say, for me, I started using Solus because, one, Ike and the passion for the project that he had. I mean, when you're quitting a decent paying job with a company like Intel to go do a passion project as your primary, that says a lot. And that shows the real passion that you have for the project. But on the same note, given the last few months and you've fallen off and there's life gets in the way, we all get that. But on the same note,
I think
there's got to be something. And right now it just seems like it's a ship without a captain, and the XOs and all those guys just aren't cutting it in the communication right because they don't know the vision that the captain initially had.
Yeah, and Ike was so clear about it. He was so firm in his direction, and that's why I used Solus for about a year and was donating, and I'm still donating to him because I haven't. I'm still believing. I'm still wanting that to go forward, and so yeah, and I haven't used Elementary, but I feel the same thing about Elementary. It's going somewhere. It's a clear path, and I think if Solus can pick up the pace and Nike will be back, I think Solus and Elementary are two distros to be watching out.
I used to not that you have to pit one against the other, but I used to always they were breakout success around the same time. Like they got this crescendo of popularity around the same time, and you should always think about like, man, who will eventually win in the long term in terms of long-term sustainability and all this stuff. And I thought Elementary was going to get it for the one simple fact that it was trying to be self-sustaining, independent of the founder. I did feel like Solus project was very founder focused and founder dependent, whereas Elementary seems like they're trying to grow a company, and companies survive founder changes. Projects don't survive founders sometimes.
I think Solus could have another voice as long as there was someone who stepped up and was
on
the
average.
vocal person.
Yeah. Now,
on average, they don't though.
Linux most of them they do, like GNOME, Debian, KDE.
But that's
like the vast majority of all the big projects that are started in
But
Linux.
Were they already big to begin with? Because usually the projects like Debian, they've had people for a while, and they hit a mass adoption levels and get to the point where if the founder left at that point, then it's like, okay, you can. It's almost like.
I'm not saying
someone has to screw it up to lose it.
So I'm saying Solus is a different thing. Solus has. I'm not saying that this would happen with Solus. I'm saying that a lot of people are saying that Solus is dead. It's not, and it's not even close to dead. Joshua has been doing a ton of work on the GNOME side of Solus and stuff like that, and they're probably doing a little bit of work on the GTK. That's probably why they're keeping GTK version of Budgie. There's been a ton of work in Solus. I just think the reason why a lot of people are kind of feeling weird about the situation with Ike is that Solus got so much attention because of this huge push of like his passion, as everybody's talking about how his passion has convinced them to care about Solus. And it just kind of like, it's the situation where the flame burned too bright type thing. And once that flame has like dwindled, and now at the point of it's like you can't even see, he doesn't talk to anybody like publicly, it makes that big, it creates a big situation where people are looking at the reason why we're even paying attention is not there anymore. So what are we expecting? What are we supposed to expect from you?
So I saw that Ike surrounded himself with individuals like Joshua who could take the lead in the project, but I feel like the way this transition is being handled and the lack of communication is where I'm running into a lot of these trust issues.
Yeah, but I was going to say, don't forget, guys, real life rears its ugly head here. You know, Ike might be struggling to find somewhere to live. Ike might be ill. Ike might be struggling to put food on the table.
Right.
And no matter how dedicated a developer, project lead you are, at the end of the day, your first thing is A, to keep warm, and B, to put sleep in the tummy.
But there's also another obligation that you have if you set up a Patreon and you have expectation and the people are giving you money, that you've created an expectation that, especially with the passion for reason why they did it, you do, for example, should at least tell them.
The communication is key. It's ethics.
I'm gonna take a break for like a month or two. I'm moving, etc. All of that have been fine.
Yeah.
We don't
The communication
expect
should be open.
happen. Yeah, but when the communication isn't there, so it doesn't have to be Ike.
No, it could be Josh.
But this isn't the first time with Solus that this has happened. They've had 3 iterations. They had Solus the first when it was Solus originally when they were Debian. Then they became Evolve OS. Now they're Solus again. This is not like this is the first time this project has dealt with.
Well, the name changing is because the first Solus absolutely died.
Right, that's what I'm saying. This is not the first time that this situation has happened.
Oh, I see.
So this they're on their 3rd iteration. It survived because they came Evolve OS. Then they had a shakeup of the changes in developers and adding stuff.
Well, the only reason they changed Evolve OS because they were sued legally.
That's right.
Right.
Because
I'm talking about the fact that they changed names, not previously. So from Solus to Evolve OS, they changed names because the original Debian-based project had issues and developer conflicts and problems. So Ike moved and he wanted to separate himself originally from the original project as it was, and he became Evolve OS. They had to change their name again to be back to Solus again because they got sued over the name. I understand why that happened. I was there. I built packages. I've followed them for a very long time. I've dealt with them since they were Debian-based. The deal is now is that, yes, it's going to be a growing pain. Yes, it's bad that Ike left, but because of the I should say the things they learned in the previous 2 iterations, there's a little bit more infrastructure in place to support the project to stay alive, even if there is no Ike, which is nice.
What I was saying was it's not a lot of the reason why a lot of people feel that the project is dying, even though it's not. There is a ton of development being done on it, is because there is no longer a loud voice telling them this is our project, these are our goals, and this is what's going on. The project still lives. There's a lot of work on it, and they can have somebody else fill that role. Real life can happen for Ike. Things can change. But in order to kind of...
There's been nobody there.
Now. There's this vacuum of all of this stuff was going on. We knew what was happening. And then Ike steps out. Nobody is filling that role of this is our voice, this is our vision, which allows for speculation.
I was going to say,
and make room for speculation.
At the end of the day, their communication with this whole situation, if Joshua wants to step up and take that place of being the spokesman and the face for Solus, by all means, he should. If you have a different direction and a different focus and a different way you want to do stuff, so if you want to stay with GTK for budget as opposed to QT, run with it. Own it. That is the problem. Nobody's
owning it. Yeah, I was just
they want to own.
Nobody is taking the reins.
So Solus's problem right now is the same thing I criticize GNOME about when they make decisions and changes. They don't communicate.
Yeah,
and you have to simply tell people this is where I actually like Elementary. They are clear and cut about where they stand with things. Solus is not being clear and cut. That is to their detriment right now.
And they used to be.
Exactly, they used to be, and that's why their patrons grew to enormous amounts. That's why Ike was able to quit his job at Intel and go full-time developing, because people saw that and started donating. But now they don't have that anymore. And that's what they're lacking. They're lacking the communication. And that's what I'll go back to what you said, Michael. Real life can happen, but now that you took all of that money for patrons to bring in so that you could quit and work on it full time, you have an obligation to at least communicate with people and say, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Yep. Just there should be like, if he wants to stop talking and I understand not want to be on a podcast anymore, not want to be, such
in the
a
limelight.
Face. Yeah.
Right.
So if he could say, okay, I'm just gonna, let everybody know I'm done with the podcasting thing, blah blah blah, and then move to just talking to patrons and letting them know that there's still something being done. Like that kind of thing would have been much more, like there would have been no speculation and no concern if that was still happening, or any kind of communication. If it was like once a month, here's what we're doing, here's a wrap of what we're doing type thing.
Right.
Anything like that would have.
But even if it was he wanted to step away from being the limelight guy.
Yeah, even
if he made one post, a resigning post or something.
Sabbatical even. Sabbatical. I'll be back. I don't know when.
It still needs a face. It still needs someone.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean,
somebody.
Yes, it doesn't have a spokesperson anymore. When you look at elementary, you look at Mate. In each one of those cases, you have a spokesperson.
Well, and Simon is doing the same thing for
Look at the Colonel. Look at the Colonel, Linus Torvald, stepping away for the release cycle of the 419 Colonel. And he made a very clear statement. I'm stepping away. This is why. I will be back for the 420 Colonel. So he let everybody know what was going on. And he actually said, this is who's taking my place.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly what was needed.
Yeah.
And Solus never got that.
So, I mean, should Ike take sort of like a Steve Jobs approach where he doesn't do interviews, he doesn't talk to other people, but then like a couple times a year he pops up and says, hey, this is what we're doing in the project.
That would help a lot. That would really help a lot.
Or
into the ether.
Or kick somebody else in the butt to do it for him.
Yes. Say Joshua's the guy now. I'm no longer the guy. I'm behind the scenes now.
They could do that. And they could also just say, hey, we're focusing on working on it. We're not trying to do like press stuff anymore. So if you are interested, go check out our blog and stuff like that. And they still do post stuff on their blog and things. So it's not like it's gone or anything. That was my point of it's not dead in any way. There's still a ton of work being done. There's still blog updates all the time.
Yeah, and Joshua is doing a lot of blog posts and Google
he was doing
posts and stuff like that.
Around anyway.
Right.
So maybe Rocco donate to Joshua instead of the actual Solus project.
Maybe.
Maybe. So
Ike's name's on a lot of changes too. If you have a look at
Ike's been doing a lot of work. Yeah. He's just not talking.
Just a couple of quickies. Breaking news: Ubuntu 19.04 will be termed Slinky Feline Derriere. Just so you know.
I don't know why I even followed you on that one. I should have known better, but I was actually thinking it's going to be a real thing. And
secondly, just a quick one I want to throw out to there.
Breaking news, BDLL.
The Darling Derriere.
Yes, there you go.
Well, we asked him to reword it. He thought about it and came up with something.
Yeah. By the way, there is a caveat: artwork by Pixel Fixer. Just listen, just another quick question for you all: does Valve know something we all don't? Just a quick question.
Yes, they know what the next.
Are you talking about more specifically about some changes that are happening in the Windows 10 platform?
Yep. I just wonder if Valve. Just very quickly.
I personally can't give any specific things on that, but maybe in the end of 2019, there might be some changes happening in Windows 10 that might affect Valve in a way that's not so positive.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Absolutely. Nice. Thank you.
So they're going to do an update and automatically delete.
No. The update's already there. The problem is it's not rolled out 100%. So
basically, anything that's not in the Windows Store, you can't install.
Well, it's
shocking surprise.
It's not that you can't install it. There's a new feature that people have run into where your files are deleted if it doesn't detect certain pieces and components in place. and it wipes the entire machine and restores it back to a safe version of Windows 10.
Perfect.
And if those IDs, if for your software are not registered within the store itself, it will remove any content related to that.
So it's
pull out of the store.
So it's that whole UMP thing that the guy from Epic Games has been complaining about for the last 2 years.
But remember, Microsoft loves open source.
Oh yeah,
get that past enterprise.
They had a sticker and it proves it.
Michael, that was so Fallout 4, dude. You are so cool. Where's the pit boy?
60,000 patents.
Yeah, I know. I just heard that Valve are getting ready to complete
They're smart.
split from Microsoft products.
Did it
for
early.
Purely that reason, because Microsoft are trying to channel everybody through their own store, and even Valve are going to be omitted from it. That's all I'd heard.
They got to recoup the cost they're going to be losing from all those licenses, and Office is becoming threatened. Their pipeline of money coming from Office licenses is they need to offset that.
They're still making a pile of money.
They're
Don't worry.
shifting everything over to Azure and cloud hosting.
And they've got a pile of money coming in for that.
Yep.
But I heard it's been taking somewhat of a hit, and for them, it's not so much like a hit that doesn't mean anything. But from a shareholder thing, like you losing 2 cents, it's like a big deal for those who watch, the markets in that sense.
Well, if you
And
notice
the Android income has been dropping for a couple years now.
All right. I hate to end this, but we are over time. So we need to pick a distro for this week, and that'll be Elementary OS. And
gee, how did I know that was going to be?
And
so what happens? What happens if I've already been using it?
Well, then we're ahead of the game.
Okay,
because I know I'm ahead of the game.
Yeah, I'm using it.
So next week,
I'm ahead of the game.
So Rocco, when are you going to jump?
What do you mean?
He's going to be
From
using
or
tools
to?
for a year. Oh wait,
I'm going to be using Elementary for the rest of the year.
This is the
year. Don't do that.
No,
he only has 3 months.
I think it might be possible
You
because
already
there's
said
only
it. You
2.5
don't get to
months
take
left.
it back.
I can't. You didn't hear that. Nobody heard that.
He's going to
between
edit
us.
it on the.
Resolution in the beginning of the year.
Is it-
and he didn't even make it.
Is it the
Okay,
Jewish
so-
year, the Chinese year, the
Wait,
fiscal year?
no. So here's the thing.
It's the
I
Rocco
love
year.
I love Elementary OS, the operating system. I love what they stand for as far as their vision of where they're going. If there are no major setbacks as far as usability, where like if I can stream and I can play the games that I play, and if I can do everything I can do on a normal basis, this is where I'm going to be staying. The only way I'm going to be going anywhere is if something happens that's a deal breaker. And I thought honestly that the app indicators were going to be a deal breaker. I mean, I said that to Shikken a couple of weeks ago when we found out that there were not going to be any app indicators in it. And
rolled right along.
I moved right along and got a workaround for it as far as putting it in the wing panel and everything. So
Nice.
unless there's a major deal breaker, this is where I'm staying.
I still think we should do MacPup. I'm just saying.
See, I'm confused. I didn't know that indicators was a thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, they are when you can't get to them.
I thought
they're
when
not
GNOME,
a thing.
I thought when GNOME deletes something, it ceases to exist.
Oh yeah, that was my thought process too. I thought when GNOME says it's gone, it's gone.
Well, I don't like the idea of it because they want the developers to go the way they want to go as far as notifications and everything. But when you got we'll just throw it out there, Steam. I mean, this is a big deal. When you don't have an app indicator for Steam, a major application.
That's a problem.
That's a problem. That's a big deal.
Oh, see,
it's not like this
I just
off
leave
the
Steam
wall
open
app.
in a workspace. I just leave it in a workspace and go do other stuff. I don't even use an app. I don't use an app indicator. I don't need it. Like I just leave it open, and when I want Steam, I switch to the workspace that Steam is on, and all my games are in that workspace. When I play video games and stuff, they're just in that workspace.
That may be a good workflow for me to
for
get
you.
to, try to use to. So maybe we need to talk after the show, sister.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean,
It's a good workflow for gaming.
Turn it on. You can just turn it on whenever you want it, and that's what I do. I don't leave it I don't leave it on, but I don't use the indicator really. I'll use the indicator when I want to close it, but other than that, I don't really care. but I typically just leave it on one particular workspace.
Mm-hmm. And we
Yeah, that's what I've done that in XFCE.
I use it all
forever.
the time.
Yeah. But Michael, you said about closing it. That's really one of the only reasons you'd use the app indicator.
That's just because
close
when you
it.
close the window, it doesn't actually close.
Right.
the thing. But if you set the window to close and also close Steam, it would solve that.
It's like Discord. It's the same thing. I mean, it doesn't close, so you have to quit. Zoom does the same thing, so
Right.
that's why I
Yeah.
got
Telegram.
these in the
There's a setting in Discord for that too.
Yeah,
that's why I always do.
They all do it.
When I
I
close
can't
Yes, but my
believe-
problem with that, Climby, is that I would probably leave the server 90% of the time when I don't really want to leave the server.
Yeah.
In Discord.
I can't believe you're all bigging up Elementary OS when Michael is on the verge of releasing Hannah Montana version 2.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
Really? Get a grip.
Don't you mean the best distro ever made, sir?
Hannah Montana
I concur.
KDE.
Yes.
Let's do that for our next.
Simon
I've said it
says he
before.
would like feedback for Ubuntu 1810.
No, to be honest with you, I mean, I know I may be like, some people may have already tried it, whatever, but I would like to seriously see or hear everybody's opinion on trying it and seeing if they could actually run it. Like, people that probably wouldn't run it. Like,
What, elementary or Ubuntu?
On elementary.
All right, let's do elementary.
Where, like Barb, you like Ubuntu
But you've got
Mate.
to throw a goal out there. It's not enough to just say, well, we're all going to do elementary this week. What are you going to do with elementary? Why, for a refreshing change, don't you all just install elementary and use it? Install your games on it, play some games, install your apps, use your apps, rather than just install, yeah, it's all right, well, I couldn't change this, that button was missing, this.
Push it.
Just use it. Use it.
Exactly. That's exactly what I wanted. That's why I said, Barb, you're used to Ubuntu Mate, but it would be awesome if you could install it and use it and see, if this is something that you could use on a daily basis for all of your apps, for everything you need to do.
And truck simulator too, Barbara.
Truck simulator.
Yeah, Barbara,
right.
Truck Simulator is a must. Poor old Wendy's a convert and a slave to it now, and my ultimate goal.
Problem was my 8-year-old son walked in the room as as Zeb was streaming.
Yep.
And playing Caravan Conquerors, and that was it. From that point on, we had to have that game.
Wow.
He was insistent.
All we need
Awesome.
now is Barbara playing Truck Simulator with a picture of Pat's
That would
derriere
actually be fun.
wafting by, and we're sorted, didn't we?
So
yeah, that's what the trucking company will be.
So Rocco, I have one question for you.
Yes.
What do you think of the workspace switcher?
I am not a big. Well, that's why I wanted to talk to you afterwards,
I
because
like
I am not a big workspace user. I mean,
But
I'm
have you
so
actually
used to-
have you actually tried it out, like the one that they have? Because I love the way it's laid out.
It's
Pretty
awesome
nice.
the way it
Really
looks, and it's awesome the way you switch it. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
can't get used to using it.
I want
Like,
that on GNOME.
I know.
literally want to take it out, and I want that on GNOME.
I know.
I wish Pop OS would literally take that and put it in it, and then
Systrom.
that it would
Someone's
go back.
working on making that for Plasma.
Who's that?
They're making like a Plasma overview plugin type thing that replaces the present windows that just shows the windows, and it's essentially combining the way that kind of like a Mac versus a Mac and a GNOME thing, but it's very similar to how the elementary does it too.
Not
so
Q-
instead, like
not
it'll do like
Q,
present
right?
windows, and at the very top it'll be your workspaces, and it'll have present in each workspace, and also whatever your current workspace is, it'll be here too. So it's
Not
actually
Q
looks good.
overview? Is
Yeah,
that it?
but what I really like is at the bottom it has icons for the applications.
Oh
So-
no, I really like it. I mean, the elementary is one of the best best ones.
Yeah.
Like I use workspaces all the time, excessive amounts. Like I have like 12 of them. Not important, but there's like they do it very nicely, and it's one of my favorites. Even though I don't use elementary, I do think they have the best implementation of what the workspace switcher could be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's amazing.
All right. Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to try it this week, and we'll come back and talk about how great it is next week.
So is there any restrictions here? Can we install and tweak tool and stuff? We can do all that if we want to.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want, Colin.
No, use it out the box as it is. Use it as the developers want. Just try and follow their
If it's
vision.
bright, I can't.
No, Wendy needs.
If it's not a dark theme, I can't.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I mean, it would be great if we could all use it, but even I don't use it out of the box. Even I have added some PPAs and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a
Shame
must
on
that
you, Rocco. You're going to break it.
You probably am. I don't think it's a must that we
installing
use it out of the box. I just think it's something that we should use and appreciate.
Try your
regardless.
best. Try your best, and if you're Wendy, don't do it.
But through the tweak tool, you can enable the dark theme. So.
Okay,
That's right.
There you go.
Tweak tool dark theme, Wendy. No problem.
So just close your eyes and do it until it goes, and then just.
To get it going, that wouldn't be an issue. But to sit at it all day and it not to be a dark theme, that it would just to think about it makes my eyes turn.
This dark mode is too dark.
It's a little too dark. Open your eyes.
Dark.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that works.
Rocco,
All right.
can you do me the honor of setting one more goal? Next week, can we have a brand new guest on the show? A gorgeous one by the name of Pixel Fixer.
Well, okay. So Zeb had said mentioned about Antec Designs, and he has his distro. So that is coming up. That we are probably going to throw that in the mix as far as trying it. But this week's definitely got to be elementary.
I've already downloaded that actually, Antec Designs deep in.
Yeah,
I'm running it right now on my secondary, and it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
If you are familiar with Arch.
Yep.
And that's a big if.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Then,
all right.
And then we'll all do Gen 2.
No.
And then Linux from scratch.
No.
Yeah, let's do it. Come on.
Well, before we get our last word in, I want to apologize to people in chat because I was absent in chat for a long time. So thank you for all the super chats. My keyboard that I had plugged in to start the show.
He poured coffee on it again.
So what happened was, anyway, it started goofing up in the middle of the stream, and that's why the stream ended, and I had to restart it. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the YouTube people did.
Yeah, we did.
Rocco, you can wreck a piece of hardware. What chance has Elementary got? Really?
So appreciate the patience with that, and hopefully the audio was better this week. But Dan, last word.
Yeah, if there's an open source project that you love, find a way to support it, either donation or give some time. And there's always a way to give back. So find a way.
Awesome words. Awesome. Colin?
Elementary, dear Rocco.
Nice. Nice.
What was that?
Nailed
Holmes?
Nailed it.
Oh my gosh. Had a coughing fit. Okay. Wendy, last words.
What Dan was talking about earlier, there's more ways to give back than writing code. There's a lot of spelling errors or stuff in manuals that can be fixed. There's little things all around. So you don't have to have a massive understanding. Reach out. There's always something that somebody needs help with on a project.
Awesome. Michael?
Yeah. First, Rocco, you're a hero for doing this build every Saturday night. Thanks for that.
Right. True.
And as always, Team Green for the win.
Nice. Well, no hero. Just this is, it's funny because this is like such an enjoyment to talk to each and every one of you. I mean, I moved this up to 9 o'clock, and I don't know how everybody else is going to like it, but I think it was awesome to sit here. And normally I was always waiting, like falling asleep waiting for the 10:30 slot to get here, and half asleep, as we're going on. But this was an awesome conversation tonight, so I appreciate it. Tyler, last words.
So I'll have to respond to Michael and say, for freedom, Team Red for the win.
Nice. No. All right, Dave, last words.
Following with the cat theme, Lubuntu 1904, the Devon Rex Derriere, designed by Wendy, Pixel Fixer.
All right, we'll send photos.
Nice. Barbara?
I was going to say something and now I don't remember, but
That works.
it does work. No, actually, I'm really glad that you've moved the time to 9 o'clock because I don't feel like I'm a total brain dead by 10. You know.
Well, it's good to have you here for the last word.
Huh?
Yeah. It's good to have you here for the last word.
Oh, thank you. Because otherwise I used to fall asleep. And that's why I would just give up.
Awesome. Sistrum?
Workspaces are awesome. And go Team Red.
Oh, man. Michael?
I have a couple things I'd like to say, but one is specifically to respond to Sistrum and Tyler, and that's Threadripper. And the other one is
all the threads all the time.
All of them, exactly. And the other one is tuxdigital.com/Lubuntu.
Awesome. Adam?
I just want to say that if you need a low-cost laptop, I wholeheartedly agree you should buy a Chromebook.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Prophetic, last words?
One, support Biddle on Patreon. And also Simon just created a Patreon too.
Yes, he did.
So
yeah.
All right. Climby?
Yeah, fun as always. I'm currently on Elementary OS right now, so it'll be an easy challenge.
See?
The only thing I do not like about it right now is that I have to click on the box when I'm logging in to enter my password. I don't like that.
You're right, Climby. I have that in my simple notes for the thoughts of the cons of the operating system is you shouldn't have to click into that box.
Mm-hmm.
It should already automatically be highlighted.
It's enough to make a person want to enable automatic login, to be honest.
Thomas, last word.
All right. All right. Well, shameless plug, druggeros.ml. Check it out.
That's right.
I am having a wallpaper competition. I know I've said this the last 2 weeks, but it's still going because nobody submitted anything yet. If you haven't submitted anything and you're planning on submitting something, it ends on October 31st. Get it in, please.
Barb, those cat pics. We need it for this competition.
Cat pics? I got a bunch of them.
Send me some, and
Okay.
we'll see what can happen.
Otherwise, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
And Thomas, that donation link?
I will make one and put it in the group chat next week.
All right, good.
You will.
There you go.
Baby
All right.
steps. That's good.
I'm working on an app repository right now. Let me tell you, doing that without its CLI is a pain in the butt.
It's horrible.
It is. And
It's
I don't
absolutely
think my hosting provider will allow me to do it. So I contacted them and they haven't contacted me back. So I might be changing my hosting provider.
Busy week.
All right, EB, last words.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Biddle and Destination Linux, I sincerely mean this. Thank you so much for so many happy hours of information and pleasure.
Yep.
And where the hell else on earth can you see the birth of Pixel Fixer?
Paul, did you get your audio working, Paul? All right, Paul's last word is nothing. All right. My last word for tonight is thank you all for showing up. And I will echo Dan and Wendy and everybody else that you should support the projects and the programs that the developers behind the programs that you use. So Linux is free to use, but it's not free. So I'd ask you to support the projects that you enjoy. All right. We will see everybody next week at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll
Absolutely.
talk about Elementary OS. Thank you guys for showing up.
by the way.
Thank you. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Puppy Linux.
Bye.
Speak